Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Janine Herbst. A federal judge in New Hampshire is temporarily blocking President Trump's ban signed in January on birthright citizenship nationwide. The judge says his order includes a 7-day stay to allow for an appeal. The class action suit brought by the ACLU argued the 14th Amendment to the Constitution guarantees citizenship to those born in the U.S. Several federal judges issued injunctions against Trump's January order, but the Supreme Court recently limited those rulings. A DOJ staffer recently got high-level access to a system at the Department of Agriculture. NPR's Jenna McLaughlin reports it would allow him to view or modify data on billions of dollars in government subsidies and loans to farmers and ranchers.
Jordan Wick arrived at the U.S. Department of Agriculture a few months ago. He quickly got access to highly sensitive personal and financial information on U.S. agricultural producers. The former software engineer at self-driving car company Waymo has been publicly linked to the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE. Access to the information would allow Wick to modify or cancel loans or payments with little oversight. That's according to a source at USDA who asked to be anonymous out of fear of retribution. While USDA and DOGE did not respond to requests for comment, experts told NPR they fear DOGE's high-level access could be abused at an already difficult and uncertain time for farmers and ranchers. Jenna McLaughlin, NPR News.
Hundreds gathered at a stadium in Kerrville, Texas last night to remember the victims of the catastrophic flooding last week. The death toll is now at least 120, with more than 160 people still missing. NPR's Frank Morris has more.
In Kerrville's old downtown, Water Street, hundreds of flowers and dozens of photos adorn a chain-link fence. Maritza Chavez is here with friends, carefully placing flowers around pictures of two relatives.
My cousin here, Jose Olvera, and his wife passed away in the flood, and they are both found, so we are able to put them to rest.
Not everyone here has even that comfort. Chavez's friend says she knows someone still missing. Frank Morris, NPR News, Kerrville, Texas.
Election officials across the country say they're worried about the Trump administration's cuts to federal election security services. NPR's Ashley Lopez reports.
The Brennan Center for Justice, which has been critical of the president, found that more than 60% of election administrators are specifically concerned about cuts to services provided by the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, also known as CISA. The group also found that almost 90% of officials said it's going to be important for state and local governments to step in and provide additional resources to make up for the loss of support they were getting from CISA to secure their elections.
NPR's Ashley Lopez reporting. This is NPR News.
Good morning. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. MassDOT has posted the northbound and southbound sides of I-93 have reopened at Exit 3 in Milton. This after flooding caused by heavy rain led to that road being closed. The initial closure began around 8:45 this morning. But do keep in mind that a flash flood warning is still in effect until 4 this afternoon, and that is for areas along the south coast. Trash collection workers in 14 towns in Massachusetts continue their strike against Republic Services. The strike has now been in effect for just about 10 full days as workers hold out for better pay, better benefits, and working conditions. Meanwhile, what happens in Massachusetts sometimes resonates across the country. The Globe reports that sanitation workers have since set up picket lines in Orange County, California. They've also started separate strikes in Washington State, Georgia, Illinois, and Northern California. Oak Bluff police are investigating after a noose was found hanging in the front yard of a residence on Beth Way, raising concerns for the black family that lives there. Martha's Vineyard Times reports the noose was hung from a high branch using a nearby mulch pile, suggesting that the act was deliberate. Police continue their investigation while the homeowner hopes that the incident can serve as a community teaching moment about the harm such symbols cause. In sports, Red Sox host Tampa Bay at Fenway tonight. They're into the ladies' semifinals at Wimbledon. And in the forecast, rain ending this afternoon, high about 70 degrees, cloudy 60s overnight. And we are at 69 degrees in Boston. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Fisher Investments. Fisher is committed to helping clients stay on track to reach their financial goals and enjoy a comfortable retirement. FisherInvestments.com. Investing in securities involves the risk of loss.
I'm Margery Egan, ahead of the second hour of BPR. Karen Reed has signed a big deal for screen adaptation. Welcome to BPR on GBH and NEPM. I am Margery Egan. Jim Braude is out today, so he's not going to hear his performance on the Toddcast, which we're going to play in a couple of seconds. But filling in for Jim is the Kennedy School's Juliette Kayyem, CNN's Chief National Security Analyst, former Assistant Secretary for Homeland Security under President Barack Obama. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me again.
Yeah.
I am not Jim.
No, you're not. And our staff is getting a day off.
Exactly. His extensive staff. But I'm thrilled to be back in this chair standing.
You're doing a great job.
And thanks for having me.
You've got a great voice. We are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Back at the BPL tomorrow. That's the library with European travel guru Rick Steves and Live Music Friday. But here now, via Zoom, political analyst Chuck Todd. Chuck's the former moderator of NBC's Meet the Press and host of this brand new Great Sunday Night with Chuck Todd on the platform Newsphere. I hope I'm saying that right. NOOS.
You are?
I am. PHER Newsphere. NOOS. PHERE. Okay. And Chuck, of course, is also the host of the great Chuck Toddcast, which this week featured Jim and me. You can find it at the chucktoddcast.com or at youtube.com/the Chuck Toddcast. It was
best
so
episode.
much fun.
Best episode ever.
Well, of course.
Of all of them. Of all of them.
Can you listen to your own voice, Margery? I am terrible at listening. I hate listening to my own voice. How do you handle it?
It's funny. I do hate listening to my own voice. Because,
we all do, right?
Yeah. I'm not the trained... I had to go to voice coach class, Chuck, for like 6 months, so I have an inferiority complex about it. But we're going to play. Can we start with playing a little sound from the podcast? Okay.
I was just going to say, I thought Jim not being here meant,
No.
He did it.
No.
He did it. I worried that it was the career ender, and maybe we finally did it.
No, he loved it. He just, I don't know what he's doing.
When you peak, on a Wednesday, you need to take Thursday off because the rest of the week is downhill.
You're right.
Being with you, I think that was it. He needed a day off.
Yeah.
Well said.
Okay, so everybody should listen to this, I hope. Here we go. Here's us on the Chuck Toddcast.
This is how you guys met?
Okay. He doesn't remember. I interviewed him, and I made such an impression, he doesn't even remember.
Margery wrote a column saying, why don't you tell them what you said I wore, Margery? Why don't you...
I said he wore whale pants.
Pants with little whales on them like they do on...
Yeah.
Oh, he's a Nantucket, implying he's like a Vineyard Vines
never
guy.
On these too. So let's not celebrate Margery's career helping the oppressed, because I was the oppressee.
Yeah. Jim Braude, the oppressee.
What era was that he would be wearing whale
Well, he
pants?
wasn't really. This is a long time ago. I wrote a column about it, made him look like he was like a little waspy guy, that he was trying to raise everybody's taxes. That was a long time ago. But Chuck Todd, it's a great podcast all the time.
But he was trying to raise everybody's taxes.
He was.
And he still has the whale pants. Let's just admit it here.
And
Okay.
we're going to get in a couple of minutes to the segment you did on the same podcast about the Jeffrey Epstein files. But before we do, since it's still, this tragedy is still in the news, at least 120 dead, 160 missing. Your analysis of the politics of these floods, these climate change disasters, although nobody seems to want to mention climate change, the blaming, the finger pointing. What do you make of all this?
Well, look, I think this is, this is only going to get worse because we're going to have more of these incidents, right? We get this extreme weather, and look, I will admit, 10 years ago, I thought this was mostly going to be, the coasts versus the rest of the country. But as it turns out, right, this extreme weather issue, you get these microbursts of water that come to where and it doesn't matter. It's not like it's just an issue for people that live in California, Florida, or Martha's Vineyard, right? This is happening everywhere. Kentucky's had worse tornadoes over the last decade than they did for the previous 50 years. I don't think they touch ocean last time I checked the map. This is central Texas, right? And so the issue is you have these smaller communities, right? And that the real fight, and this has happened the real issues are local problems, whether it's burying power lines, whether it's spending of a little extra money for preventative resources, whether it's for alarm systems, whether it's to get and this stuff, right? Local communities don't really have the money. There's an allergy to raising property taxes to do it. If you're in a state that doesn't have an income tax like Florida, there's really no other venue. Maybe are you going to raise a sales tax? That's, Florida always taxes other people, right? Yeah. They tax the living daylights out of anybody that visits the state, right? If you ever stay at a hotel and rent a car, you'll see, you're the taxpayer for the state of Florida if you're a visitor. And so I do think this is, and I saw that, look, it took a tragedy, but now the lieutenant governor of Texas, who's, no climate change guy, Dan Patrick, is recommending that the state, for smaller communities, purchase these systems. And I thought I'm glad to see it. I'm sorry, like everything in our political system, we apparently have to wait until the crisis happens before we'll act.
Yeah, we're not a culture of preparedness like other countries. No. And I think it's interesting, or just want your opinion on the how the Republicans might see the politics of disaster. And I don't mean to be crude about it, but in some ways we are going to look for silver linings, considering, and I'm in this space in disaster management, this totally inexplicable and inexcusable death count. I'm just going to say it. These numbers are, I think we're going to get over 300. Like this is just a failure of notification, because I know it was a unique storm. So the criticisms about the Doge impact, and then in the past, and then the impact of the big beautiful bill on things like National Weather Service, NOAA, and FEMA. Do you think that the GOP might blink because people really do expect government to work? No matter how much they say they hate government, they expect it to work when there are disasters?
I do. I actually do. I think you'll see a reversal of this because simply because the one time that people want government to work is when they need help, right? We hate government until we need them. And this is a case where you need them. And look, I know Trump doesn't want, you know why he wants to get rid of FEMA? He doesn't want the responsibility. Yeah. Right? He is seen, Trump is in some ways, Trump looks at it like, how do I mitigate criticism? Well, if it's not my responsibility, then I can put it off to the states, and it's up to these governors to take responsibility. I don't have to take responsibility. Well, the problem is, do I have confidence that the state of Florida could do this? I do, because forget DeSantis and how he's managed the government. Starting with Jeb Bush, there's a because of what happened with Hurricane Andrew, again, it took a crisis, but there's actually a really good system in place. But not every state is like that. Yeah. Okay. And if you take FEMA, FEMA is simply just a money laundering organization, meaning, I'm half kidding, meaning you just use it to funnel cash to the locals. How are they gonna, I had Pat McCrory, former governor of North Carolina, Republican. He dealt with this. He said, FEMA, he made this point. He said, if you ask the states to sort of warehouse supplies, every 3 years, they're going to have to, if they don't use them, they're going to have to get rid of them. Right. The beauty of FEMA, if they're warehousing the supplies, okay, what they bought for North Carolina, they now can use in Kentucky. And this is actually where it's more efficient. It's not always more efficient if the federal government does things. Right. In this case, it is.
And I think Trump, I look at the statistics I look at the polling of disasters. We all remember he's more popular now, but George W. Bush's polling after Hurricane Katrina he never recovered. We never recovered. People think it was Iraq. It was not Iraq. It was Katrina. And then I'm of the school that Donald Trump would have been president a second term in a row, but it's a big but for COVID. I think people expect their government to work, and his failure to make it work really hurt him. And so it maybe you're right that he's deflecting this because he's he recognizes that the polling, governors and presidents don't win on disaster management, but they certainly lose on it.
Yeah, no, they do. It's funny you say that. If it was a winning issue, Jeb Bush would have been president of the United States. Yeah. Right? Yeah. No governor handled what he did in 2004 and 2005. He handled it with something like 5 hurricanes in one season, right? And in fact, the team was so good, Barack Obama hired his emergency. Hired Jeb Bush as Craig Fugate, right? So, the guy is a super, sort of one of these super staffers, as I call them, like the people that are, regardless of party, the guy knows what he's doing on this topic. So I I do think, though, that Republicans are all going to blink. Especially, look, when it's the Texas conservatives that suddenly want more funding for the National Weather Service, it's going to happen. Yeah. Okay, it's going to happen.
So Chuck Todd, we're speaking, of course, with Chuck Todd from the Chuck Toddcast and all these other things he does. One of the things I love about your Toddcast is that you give a little monologue at the beginning and then you do your interview. So yesterday, in the one that Jim and I were in, you spoke about this whole the Jeffrey Epstein file, and you framed it about trust. Tell people what you said about this.
Well, I mean, look, this trust in government issue is really at the core, I think, of our broken politics right now, right? And this has been an accumulation. And in fact, I sit here, I always say that there's different ways that there have been broken trust, right? You could go all the way back to the Kennedy assassination. For some people, is a core trust, and the fact that we still are getting new information about what the government knew or didn't know at the time, what the CIA knew, that to me is why Donald Trump found so many believers in his conspiracies, right? Because the biggest government conspiracy is still unresolved. JFK. That sort of was a foundational, right? And then you throw in Watergate, and then we had Vietnam, right? And then then over the last 25 years, what have we had? Iraq WMD, we've had the financial crisis, and then we had the whole Russia thing, which is a very divisive issue. Then COVID, right? Which was, all of it was sort of, is government telling us the truth? Do we know everything we have from government? And then you had a lot of people, create a political following. Think of Dan Bongino in particular. Yeah. Kash Patel sort of dined out on these conspiracy theories. Now they're in charge. They caught the car, right? They're the dog that caught the car. And, I'm an Occam's razor person. They went in there assuming there was this huge cover up and realizing, oh, there's no there. How do we explain this?
Yeah, Jeffrey Epstein, we should say, just people thought that there were going to be all these bigwig, mostly Democrats, having sex with... It was bigwig
Democrats. I think if there's a list, it might suggest that it was bipartisan.
It was like, I mean, if this existed, but, I'm sorry, the government does a terrible job at withholding information other than the CIA's relationship with Oswald. I feel like it's the only thing government did a pretty good job of keeping secret for 60 years. Beyond that, Juliette, you know this. Yeah. You served in government. Nothing. If there was something this explosive that was being withheld, there's always a whistleblower. There's always a leaker. There's always and Ghislaine Maxwell, if she had what these conspiracy theorists believe is in that list, you don't think she'd have traded it? You don't think she would have done it to save her own skin? Yeah. That's why I've always her actions tell me there's no there.
Well, you mentioned
on this front,
but
you reap what you sow,
right?
And the thing is that this is what they promise,
right? But to be clear, it isn't that there's no there in the sense Jeffrey Epstein had a conspiracy to have these girls on the island or whatever. But it's
that's the crime.
That's the crime, right? But not that the United States was protecting him in doing it, right? But that's what they've been selling, especially because
there was one prominent person, Prince Andrew. This is one of those cases. To me, Prince Andrew is proof there's no other people, because if you've exposed, correct, right? And yet here is the one, right? And the minute there's one now. I go back to something here. Is there anything the government, I said this, I asked one of my close friends who's a JFK person, has been researching this a long time. I said, is there anything the government could release that would say, okay, I now believe I have everything? And he said, no.
Yeah.
Well, if you're down the rabbit hole on Jeffrey Epstein, is there anything that is said that will make you say, oh, I guess there wasn't any conspiracy. I'll move on. No, right? You're always going to believe that there's something more. Now, look. It is Pam Bondi that went out there and passed around those notebooks, and it is Pam Bondi that went out there and claimed these things. It is Dan Bongino that went out. So
they're running the FBI. For people who don't know, Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, who've been talking about these Epstein files for ages, are now running the FBI.
Right. I think they should all be fired.
Yeah. For the promises, not for...
Correct.
Right. I mean, I sort of felt the same way, too.
Because I don't trust anything that comes out. And by the way,
Now they're
Do we really believe within 24 hours of this disaster with Epstein and their base, what do? Hey, look, we're investigating Comey and Brennan.
But let's be clear here. They're not investigating. It's a preliminary inquiry, which means they have nothing. It's going to go away, but it gives, 3 days of coverage on Fox. Let's just say it's so preliminary that neither John Brennan nor Comey have been notified that they should lawyer up. I mean, Brennan was on TV yesterday, the former CIA director, saying, I hear there's an investigation against me. We haven't been contacted. So this is exactly right, that they are changing the subject. I have to be honest with you. I don't believe there's a conspiracy, and I love that they're getting killed on having promoted the conspiracy. I hear you,
Juliette, but here's the real problem. And this is where we're going to suddenly become, this, go to Russia.
Yeah.
Do people believe anything they read anymore there? They don't.
No.
Frankly, go to Tel Aviv, go to Jerusalem. When I've had these conversations, nobody knows what to believe.
Yeah.
And we are now, we are, I fear we're going down we're going down that road where the American information ecosystem is so broken that nobody believes, I don't know what to believe anymore. Forget it. I'm tuning out. I'm going to make my.
This is why the politics of disaster are relevant, because they believe 300 dead. I mean, that's the thing you can't hide from. And
can't
that's
hide
why.
the deaths.
And that's why.
Although COVID
was the same.
Yeah.
We have a bit of breaking news here from the New York Times. A federal judge has just blocked the Trump administration from enforcing this contentious executive order ending birthright citizenship. And this, of course, is reignite this legal standoff that has been underway since the beginning of President Trump's second term. This Joseph LaPlante from the U.S. District Court of New Hampshire allowed the case to proceed as a class action, which is significant because that's the only way these suits can proceed now is a class action. Correct? I mean, this is
the Supreme Court essentially in their order gave the blueprint to the plaintiffs on how to refile their case. And yes, so I remember there was a lot of hyperventilation about that order, but if you in the details they basically telegraphed, look, we're not going to stop it this way, but if you do it this way, then we have no choice but to, be able to temporarily stop the.
This is the court out of New Hampshire.
Yes, it's a court out of New Hampshire. This is a George W. Bush appointee, and he said he's going to issue a written order later in the day, stating the order for 7 days, allowing time for an appeal. So I guess the big deal here is that they're getting around it with a class action suit.
I should say before.
Can you imagine? How do you enforce that? Let's say Trump is allowed to do this. Explain to me how he enforces this. Who does he decide is eligible for birthright citizenship and who isn't? Show me your papers. Yeah.
Well, it's also going to be politically difficult when you're talking about 2- and 3-year-olds. I think really saying, what's going to happen to them. Do we have time? We don't have that much time left, but we can very briefly talk about something you want to talk about. Go ahead.
Oh, no. I was alerting everyone on breaking news and live co-hosting that this is my husband. I'm getting pings to comment on it. I was going to tell. I'll say it publicly because I said it before. This is my husband is the chief judge of the appellate court here, so we will refrain from my comments. I was like, "Is this the First Circuit?" Yeah. It is the First Circuit. So that is why. That is why, Chuck, you saw me going like this. But anyway, all good. Live radio is fun.
Okay, we have about a minute and a half left, so you got to get out what you want to talk about really quickly.
What was that? Because now that
Trump's mental health.
Oh, I do. I have. So you obviously know that a lot of people reacted to your interview with Jake Tapper about Biden's mental, Jake's book. Okay, so that's the old president. I am so curious. What is your calculation where we can have a serious conversation rather than he's, bat-esque crazy in the sort of, his personality is erratic.
The problem is he's been he's been this way for 40 years. So how do you decide?
But you don't think it's? So I'm curious because I work for CNN and I don't comment. Like I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to comment on it. Yeah. So But so I'm very careful about things like this. But so I'm asking now that I get to ask questions, like as a reporter, at some stage you are noticing that he does seem different. I mean, or am I making that up?
So here's what I notice. Here's what I notice. He gets tired sooner.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think if you notice, whenever he does events after 4:00, you can hear his voice gets tired. I mean, he's having, what does somebody called it, it's sort of moments where you sort of have a senior nap moment, or whatever it is.
Fall asleep in the middle of whatever.
Right. And all of that is, he basically operates 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And then he takes this huge break, and then he gets, weirdly re-energized at midnight.
10,
right. Yeah. He has, my late father had this weird habit, and I chalked it up to his alcoholism at the time because and that was his.
Sorry.
I know Trump doesn't do, but he kept his own weird hours, and that's what happens to a lot of people who are on something. Now, I know Trump doesn't drink, but Trump has the strangest sleep schedule.
Yeah.
For somebody that doesn't drink.
Yeah.
Like it has always been surprising to me, and I believe it. Look, if he was lying about his drinking, it would leak out. So he doesn't. He has some weird but that's not healthy.
Yeah,
I agree.
I agree.
Is not healthy at all.
I can't believe we're stopping Chuck Todd.
Up against the clock, so we've got to go. But thank you so much.
Thank you so much. We've been speaking with political analysts.
But I mean, Martha's Vineyard tomorrow at the Vineyard Forum, we're doing a whole special on local news.
Excellent.
All these leaders in the news industry are going to be out there. So if anybody is
here at GBH,
hanging out in the
we're for
Vineyard,
local news. Thank you.
Yes.
Great.
Thank you very much, Chuck Todd. Vineyard Forum tomorrow in Martha's Vineyard.
Okay, good. We got to go quick. We've been speaking to Chuck Todd, greatest crossover between, since Happy Days and Laverne and Shirley.
Up next, shopping.
Okay, good. She told me to cut it short. Bye.
Writer and film.
Welcome back to hour number 3 of Boston Public Radio.
He merges 2 American pastimes, baseball and movies. In looking at how the baseball movie has changed over the decades, from sports glory to nostalgia to cynicism, he says we can also see how American values have changed. That and more today on The Culture Show at 2 on 89.7 GBH.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you. And Mass General Brigham. Their leading heart and vascular specialists are committed to providing breakthrough care to patients with cutting-edge research and innovative treatments. Learn more at massgeneralbrigham.org/heart. And Rockland Trust Bank, helping foster healthy relationships with money by providing education and resources to the community, one neighborhood at a time. Rockland Trust Bank, where each relationship matters. Member FDIC.
Okay, welcome back to BPR and GBH and NAPM. Juliette Kayyem is in for Jim, who's got the day off. We are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We'll be back at the Boston Public Library tomorrow for our weekly media analysis segment called Press Play. But right now, we're going to open the phone and text lines to you at 877-301-8970 because it's Amazon Prime Day, which they've extended to a whole week, maybe because it's not going as well as it used to. It's down a whopping 41% in purchases from last year. Some people think it has to do with inflation fatigue or people's fear about the economy under sclerotic President Trump, or maybe it's something to do with Americans voting with their dollars enough to the extravagant billionaire and his Venetian wedding, enough to the landfill busting constant deliveries, enough, offshoring American jobs, or maybe it's part of a trend we've talked about for the last 6 months, that is, boycotts of places like Target and Walmart for knuckling under to Trump and rolling back diversity initiatives. So again, the number is 877-301-8970. We want to know what's going on with you and your shopping. How are you spending your money? We know it's important to support small businesses, but are you somebody who can't seem to kick your addiction to online retail? Or are you at Costco? Or are you sneaking over to Target even though you maybe shouldn't be sneaking over to Target? Have you found alternatives to Amazon? And how do you feel about CVS? I spend an awful lot of time at CVS. I was just there last night.
I just want you to repeat a word that's in your run-up. What was that word that you were trying to say?
CVS?
No, sclerotic. You want to try?
Did I say it wrong?
I know, I'm joking because it's a funny word to try to read.
Yeah.
It's one of those words you know what it means, but when you're asked to pronounce it out loud,
you're kind of not. I think of it as blood vessels kind of clogged up. CVS, with everything behind the shelves, right? Everything behind
and
the
no
shelves.
one answering the
I'm there
ring.
last night.
Yeah.
Everything I like is behind the shelves. All my beauty products.
Yeah.
All the pressed white strips, all that kind of stuff behind, so you can't take it out and read the directions.
The
drives me nuts.
White strips are behind.
Yes, because they're expensive.
It used to be the shaving cream and the razors. That was always the thing, which is fine because I always use the same products. But it's not as fun as it used to be.
Oil of Olay is behind.
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
Oil of Olay is like $4.90. Like it's not that expensive.
A lot of people must shoplift Oil of Olay. That's all I can say. It's a shoplifting issue.
So we're not getting anyone calling, but I feel like you should call because everyone has strong opinions about Amazon and retail shopping and consumerism. I'm gonna say one thing. I think my Amazon Prime membership is probably the best club I've ever joined in my life. Let me just put it this way.
Okay.
It saved my life as a working mother with young kids. I'm trying to wean myself off it now because my purchases are not as like pressing. But nonetheless, it does very much help working families.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of young people use it tremendously too. But I guess the thing is, there's a lot of choices in shopping now. You can do the Amazon online, and they do let you read the directions and the instructions on the Amazon online before you buy your Oil of Olay. You can go to Costco, which has stood up on the DEI stuff. You can get down there and buy 110 rolls of toilet paper.
It's doing much better.
It is doing much better.
I love Costco. Can I tell you why?
Certainly.
Because Costco's like the only place where you could just be like, I'm picking up a few things, and then you're like, I think I need a piano. And then your husband takes you off the ledge because no one really plays the piano. But the idea of buying a piano
at Costco, can you buy a piano at Costco?
Do you need an 11-piece unit, 11-piece luggage set? Because you can get that too. And I've been tempted. I wasn't in the market for luggage, but the beauty of Costco, or the horror of Costco, is you go in with a list, but somehow you justify, expanding that list. So I do have luggage from Costco. I do not have a piano, but one time they were selling a piano, and I thought it was hilarious.
Or just upright?
No, like an actual. I mean, like a real piano, not like a keyboard. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And of course, everyone knows that the ribs that you grill at home at Costco are the best. Oh, the best.
All right.
I miss Costco.
Weigh in on what's going on with your shopping now. Are you not buying at Amazon because you're making a moral protest or just because you're worried about money? How do you feel about CVS having everything locked up behind the shelf? Do you go to Costco, as many people, including Juliette, go, or do you, or Market Basket, which is another fight over the future of Market Basket?
And the parking spaces there, as I noted.
Are there bad parking spaces?
Oh, my God. Okay, I love the one that Jim and I go to
in Somerville.
Spaces, it's like
it's hard to get into.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, the Chelsea.
But anyway, I don't want to badmouth Market Basket because I like them. But okay,
877-301.
Oh, look, we have someone.
8970. Oh, yeah. If you get Erin in Brookline,
is red someone? Erin, you're in red on my screen.
The other people are the ones we'll get to later.
Okay, good.
The red one is the one we're going to right now. That's Erin in Brookline. Hi, Erin.
Hello. I'm so happy to be Juliette's first call.
Yay! Hi, Erin. Nice to hear you.
You too. Long time listener, first time caller.
Good.
I am not an Amazon Prime member. I try not to use Amazon as much as I can. And I was talking about this with friends recently, kind of showing your political values with your wallet. I think you guys talk about it all the time. And my friend informed me that Amazon basically owns the cloud. So there's kind of no way for us to boycott them. Even though I do, shop at Costco, try to shop local as much as possible. Obviously not celebrating Amazon Prime Day this week, but it is just a little disheartening to be like, cool, the $300 that I would spend on Amazon a year are being offset by kind of everything else that they have there.
Do you shop on Etsy? Because some people sort of try to, I know it's different products, but like, are you trying to support in some way or?
Yeah, definitely like holiday season. I'll hit up Etsy for like crafty things, but I try to go, if I'm doing like a lot of jewelry or stuff, gifts for people, I go to Soa Market. There's so many local artists that are doing really cool things that you can get really cool gifts at, or like the Brookline Bazaar or the Brighton Bazaar. Like there's cool places that you can get Etsy related things that also local people are doing.
And the hardware stores, all of that, the local
Where's
stuff.
the Brighton Bazaar? Where's that?
Outside the library, right? Wasn't it? You didn't.
Yeah. And I think around the holiday season, they used to do it in Roadrunner.
Oh, okay.
Like they would,
cool.
for like
and
a
they
weekend
have,
or whatever.
Yeah, and then they have something outside the Brighton Alston Library, like on the yard, or they used to at least. Well, good for you. Keep with it. I'm trying to wean myself off of Amazon.
Listen to this.
But all of us are thinking about how we're spending our money now, just because you don't know what the next couple months are going to be like.
One of the texters, Juliette, says at one point Costco sold caskets.
You know,
So really
I might have been tempted.
Whole life experience.
I am telling you, the Costco experience is buying things that you never knew you needed, and you probably don't. But you will need a casket. I don't know. You know me. I like to plan ahead.
Yeah.
I could see myself buying one.
Yeah, I think we're going to get. Oh, we got to go.
Gotta go. We're having so much fun.
We'll
More
be right
callers
back.
after this.
In the 1970s, a country now known as Zimbabwe was fighting for independence from British colonial rule. A powerful new movie called Don't Let's Go to the Dogs Tonight looks back on that history from the perspective of one white family consumed by racism and afraid of losing what they believe is rightfully theirs. That's next time on The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Support for GBH comes from you. And Maine Maritime Museum. Their new exhibit, Upon That Isle in Maine, the story and works of Chris Van Dusen, explores original artwork from the children's book author and his connection to the Maine coast. MaineMaritimeMuseum.org. And the Massachusetts Educational Financing Authority, helping families overcome the college planning stress. Committed to providing trusted guidance with calculators, step-by-step videos, and more. Details at mefa.org.
Oh, look at this.
Okay, we're
person.
back and we're talking about online shopping. Juliette Kayyem is in for Jim Browder's got the day off. So it's Amazon Prime. They're not doing nearly as well as usually does with Prime special deals. They've extended it. So far, they're down like 41%. I'm very excited about everything being behind a lock.
I know. And also we
CVS.
should add though, I mean, the sense of thinking about your purchases differently because you don't know, you know, sort of what's around the corner in terms of the economy with tariffs and everything. Like, I mean,
that's one of the
I
reasons.
think about it almost like sort of like, really, do I need that or whatever? Just in the sense like you're like, I don't know what's going to happen in this this country. I know lots of people who never thought twice about big vacations in the summer, like, oh, we're going to stay closer to home. Like everyone is just sort of thinking more strategically. It feels different, and maybe it feels different because of the, you know, the sort of everyone spending lots of money after COVID when things were looking good. But I would say I don't know a single person who's not thinking strategically about not just how they shop, but whether they shop.
877-301-8970. What are your shopping habits July 2025 and why? Robert and Lowell, thanks for calling.
Yeah.
Hey, good morning.
Hi, thanks for calling.
Yes, and Juliette, it is a pleasure to speak with you. I've enjoyed listening to you.
Thank you. I'm having a great time. Thanks.
Yes, but anyway, not only am I in Lowell, but I am in Market Basket as we speak in aisle 2. And it's virtually the kind of the original Market Basket in the acre section of Lowell. It's a fabulous small store, but everything is here. Anyway, but the reason I was calling, I have been, except for a few things that I find I can't get elsewhere, I've been cutting back on Amazon quite a bit. I guess I don't like Jeff Bezos, frankly. But my main point is I'm going to veer off a little bit, but I just came back from 2.5 days up in Kennebunk, Maine. Not Kennebunkport, although I was over there. But I can tell you, you would not find a Quebec license plate up
Amazing,
there.
isn't it?
The streets are quiet. I spoke to the the guy in the register at Cumberland Farms. Now, Mainers, they don't like to talk politics the way I do, but so they weren't like pointing the finger. But yep, things are off. Could be the politics they say. Of course, the Canadian dollar is weak, but I mean, this is
Robert,
the second week in July.
No, Robert, you're right. I mean, we from a border perspective, you're just reflecting what we know in terms of border crossings, but we never talk about it in terms of the economics. We talk about it in terms of, everyone's mad at us. They don't like to cross the border. But these communities in Maine, in Massachusetts, in Vermont, that survive on Canadians' goodwill and money coming down are being heavily impacted. I saw a story that some inn in Maine is showing an 80% reduction this summer. So the economic impact of this is real, because honestly, we're talking about shopping boycotts. People are boycotting the United States as a place to spend their money at.
Robert,
they really are. And okay.
Robert, thank you very much.
Thank you, Robert,
for the call and the kind words. Listen to this. I love Costco, and actually, I bought a piano there. It replaced our rickety old one. It's a player piano that plays by itself. How about that? And Costco, another Costco fan says they want to add that they also have a huge online presence. You can order.
Oh, I didn't know that.
If that's what this person says.
I'll get my casket online. I am ready. I'm going to check it out at the break.
You could be mulched, I'm looking into that.
Yeah.
Planning ahead.
No,
Maybe I'll be mulched. Go right back into the ground.
I don't want to take space when I'm dead. I'm going to go to the beach.
Go
to the beach in ashes.
The ashes
totally.
be spread over.
I don't want to take space. The world's too crowded.
Okay. Dora in Seekonk. Hi, Dora.
Margery, you're the best, and Juliette is a worthy.
Oh,
it's so true.
Thank you.
I was standing here, like following her lead. Hi. I still do.
Hi. First, I want to say I remember the demonic laugh that Jeff Bezos used to have. He must have gotten schooled out of it at some point.
Great
I never hear it.
That's a great point. He probably went to voice lessons like I did. He did have that weird thing.
Yeah. He doesn't do that anymore, but he seems even more demonic to me. So I try to avoid him. But I do occasionally let my son, I'll ask him, because he and his wife just love Amazon. It's like anytime we're there, there's packages arriving. I don't know. It seems like a tremendous amount of waste to me. But I do like TJ Maxx and they're local, and Marshalls. And a lot of times I'll see stuff that's expensive in other stores, and there it is, very cheap. So.
Well, very good. Those are two good stores, Dora. Thank you. That we should have mentioned TJ Maxx and Marshalls. Lots of people love those, Dora, and I think a lot of young people spend an awful lot of money at Amazon. I see it on my street. All the young couples, but they're busy. I think that's part of it.
It is. I mean, look, your spending habits, or your spending. Your the way you shop is going to change at different stages in your life. And so when I was working and we were both working and had 3 young kids, it was really easy to press Amazon, if you were desperate.
So listen to this. This is a philosophical perspective from Nick on NEPM in Hartford, Connecticut. He says, my partner and I gave up Amazon about a decade ago. Environmental concerns, local businesses they want to support. It's been very useful in exercising a wait-and-see mentality with consumption in general. If we wait on an unessential purchase and forget about it in 2 days' time, we move on and accept it was just a quick fix impulse. That's a good point.
That's profound. I mean, it is, and it's true. I mean, sometimes I'll look in my Amazon shopping cart because I forgot to press send or, sort of purchase, and I'll see 3 or 4 things where I was like, why did I actually need? Because I had left it in my shopping cart for whatever reason. So I think that's right, and I think that disciplining is going on across the board now.
There are certain times too that I found much less discipline when you're shopping online, especially for clothes.
Yeah.
If you see something that's really pretty.
I have an Instagram moratorium on purchases on Instagram, because those just hit you when you're like, oh my God, those pants look terrific. No, I do no more Instagram. I do no more purchases from Instagram. Also, because all my girlfriends, favorite it, so it shows up in my feed and it drives me nuts. I'm jealous.
877-301-8970. What are your shopping habits? Amazon is in mourning this week. It's not doing as well as usual. But how do you feel? No one is calling about CVS. I'm hurt because I I've spent a lot of time at CVS. I feel it's my neighborhood store. John in East Hampton. What do you think, John?
Yeah.
A couple different things. I try to support brick and mortar. I try not to shop online for many of the reasons your other callers have mentioned. Even though I'm finding retail more and more seems to want you to shop online, you go to the stores and there's not as much variety. There's not as much selection. I'm about to go into Michael's right now.
Michael's.
Michael's.
We love Michael's.
Some plastic plants, I'm telling you. I love them.
And they say, well, I'm going for art supplies. I'm not going for plastic plants. But
they do have very pretty plastic plants, so you can't tell they're plastic until you get really close. The plastic wreaths are there, too, right?
They even smell. Sometimes they even smell like real plants.
They do?
Yeah.
But
wow.
Yeah, I also wanted to make a comment, talk about DEI a little bit. I just want to say that, there's been controversy around DEI for a long time now, long before the Trump administration came into power. And just because a company steps back from their DEI policies, it doesn't mean that they've abandoned their non-discrimination policies. It doesn't mean that they've embraced racism. It doesn't mean that they've, gone over to the other side. I mean, there's been a lot, as I said, there's been a lot of controversy around DEI for years, particularly around overreach in many DEI programs.
Yeah. I think that's fair.
I think.
I don't know, John. When they've hide the Pride stuff during Pride Month at Target, and they have much less just stuff on display. I don't know. I think if I were in part of the LGBT community, I'd feel pretty crummy about that. No.
Can you let me finish what I'm saying?
Go right ahead.
The Target station in Hadley, the Target store in Hadley had signage up for Black History Month. They had signage up for Pride Month. So I don't know what Target you're going to, but that's not my experience in my local Target.
Well, that's great.
And I also think, I think it's interesting that you came back like that, because I think your prior statement for an announcer to say maybe you're shopping at Target when you know you shouldn't be shopping at Target, that's a pretty specific and hardline ideological stance for an announcer in a public forum.
Hold on for a second here, John. We've talked a lot about Target. I don't think there's any doubt when the corporation says it's going to hold back on their policies, when they're going to take away Pride stuff, when they're not doing the stuff in terms of diversity hiring than they did. I mean, I think the Black community gets pretty upset about it. The white community probably should be upset about that, because it's bigotry, I think. Isn't it?
What this is exactly my point. Just because you have issues with and have disagreements with DEI policies does not mean you're a bigot. Does not mean you're in favor of discrimination.
No, I think the point here is that the statements that were made by these companies, I think were interpreted by the communities that wanted these programs, and we can spend forever criticizing DEI, as a retraction or removal from a commitment to equality. You can't deny that. That's how those communities saw it. You're saying they shouldn't see it that way. These are just corporations readjusting how they think or market equality, and that's just going to be a debate. That they did it, at the moment that they did it is relevant in terms of at least the calendar. I do know, Target said it's going to end its 3-year DEI goals, stop reports to external groups like the Human Rights Campaign's Corporate Equality Index, and end a program focused on carrying more products from Black or minority-owned businesses. That's just their statement. It may be that the number suggests that they're still doing all sorts of good things in terms of minority business outreach or in terms of at least diversity. But we're just, or Margery, I don't need to defend her, is just reflecting what the company said John, in terms of that. But
I think we've got John, and I will go with Michael Curry from the NAACP, who thinks that Target is not holding up its end of the bargain, and I think he has a lot more expertise in this than I or John does. But John, thank you for the call. We just have to agree to disagree. Anyway, 877-301-8970 is we're talking about shopping, how you feel, where you want to spend your money, if you're worried about spending your money, if you're going to Market Basket, if you're going to Costco, if you're going to TJ Maxx, which somebody mentioned before. Where are you at? David in the car.
Hello.
Hi, David.
Thank you for taking my call. Thank you so much for taking my call.
Thanks for calling.
What I want to, okay. What I just wanted to say, I think, and this is no disrespect to John. Everybody has their own opinion. But what I will say, as a Black American, I am taking a hard stance on where I spend my money. And it's great to find reasoning and for companies to say that, you know, maybe they're hiding their policies, all of this. But I agree with you all. That's what the companies are saying. I have seen the pullback. And as a Black American, I can't change my color. And I am not, and I don't have the luxury of maybe a John has to be able to sit down on the couch and see where this goes.
David, that's a great point. I mean, I think that there is a definite nationwide pullback on DEI stuff, and I don't think it's hidden. I think it's pretty direct what we're talking about here. Correct?
And I think that. Sorry, David, go ahead.
No. I want to listen to your response, and then I might have a follow-up.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying you are reflecting what we're also seeing in the numbers. So, I mean, you can disagree with it, as our previous caller did, but the numbers are showing that the Black community is, as a whole, steering its dollars to companies that remain committed to, you don't call it DEI, just to inclusiveness, right? Just you don't have to call it a program, but to inclusiveness, and retreating from companies that seem to just sort of want to cater to a backlash that was led by the White House. I mean, it's just the numbers are clear. It's like you can't deny it. I'm not a very some hypocritical on some things because I still do shop on Amazon. But David, you remind me, and we should mention this too, talking about people that stuck to their guns. How long were people not taking the bus in the Montgomery bus boycott when people didn't have cars? Over a year.
Was it like more than a year,
It was
David?
close to a year, over a year.
Yeah.
But it was the year.
It was more than a year.
The year was the correct number. Yeah.
Absolutely. But the last thing I want to say is that I listen to urban radio on Sirius. I listen to it all the time. And I can tell you that Black people in general, they're in community around this. And we are definitely going to be using our dollars as a protest and by the way, Target is just an avatar, okay? And it's to let other companies know that we have some power here and we're not stepping down or taking this lightly.
Yeah. David, that was a great call.
Thanks, David.
Thank you very much. It matters a lot more than my fretting, I suppose, about my oil of Olay that's behind a lock at CVS, which is driving me up the top.
Don't knock moisturizing. People always say to me, they like these women's
moisturizing, very important
women's speeches that I'll give. The first question is what would you tell your younger self? And they want me to say something wise, and I say moisturize. Literally, that's all I've learned at my age. Was God, why 25? Why was it? 25-year-olds start moisturizing now.
That's right.
I waited too long.
Yeah, start with the neck. Don't forget the neck. As Nora Ephron, the great late Nora Ephron wrote, I hate my neck. And she showed us all what we would learn if we did not moisturize our neck, and it wasn't a pretty picture.
So I think locking up oil Olay is actually bigger than just CVS's new policies.
Okay, Anne from Dighton, thank you for calling.
Hello?
Hi, Anne.
Hello?
Hi.
You were talking about gifts and buying things?
Yes.
About 3 or 4 years ago, I changed my whole mindset about gifts. I have enough stuff. I don't need more stuff. So what I do is I have one child. She's 25 years old. About three years ago, I started buying her for birthdays and Christmas experiences. I'm supporting local people. And she gets to experience a variety of opportunity. Like, for example, her last birthday, I got her she and her boyfriend. I got their opportunity to do in Providence.
Oh, that's
cool.
so amazing. I saw a friend of mine I saw online for her husband. I don't know where this came from, but for his birthday, she got him the experience. I guess there's a place out in Western Mass of like falconry that like you can do like a falcon, whatever day. I don't know what it is. You're doing falconry, but it is true. That's something that they will remember forever, even a local spa day.
You know,
the first year.
Go ahead, Annie. Go ahead, Ann.
The first year I did this, you should have seen the looks that I got because I also was buying her things she can use. My other thing, if I do buy her something and she has to use it, she cannot. It can't accumulate.
Yeah.
So the first year I did this, oh, you should have seen the response. She looks at me. Vacuum cleaner filter?
They'll thank you. They'll thank you. I got my son an air fryer for Christmas because he was living off campus for his last year of college. And he like looked at me. And then like when I picked him up 6 months later for graduation, I said, how did that air fryer work? He goes, thank God you gave that to us. So it is true that you got to teach them what they need.
You know, I just want to mention Michael Norton from Harvard used to be on our show quite a bit. And he wrote a book about buying experiences, just exactly what Ann was talking about, that get people, theater tickets or get people a weekend away or a night away or something like that instead of buying them another sweater like for Christmas. And I thought I started doing that too in my own family.
They say for younger couples that have babies that like they don't need more baby crap and like whatever, that like what you should give them is like, I will watch the baby and you go to the restaurant and I'm paying for it down the street. Just get out for 90 minutes and stuff. It is true.
We have about a minute left for Kira in Somerville. Hi, Kira. Thank you for calling.
Hi. I'll try to be quick. I only do online shopping when I really can't get a particular item any other way, such as an out-of-print book, and it's almost always eBay. It's almost always eBay. And, of course, we all need to buy necessities at some point, so I go to Market Basket, yard sales, thrift stores, and library sales. Of course, we all need... Great, yeah. You can find library sales on booksalefinder.com, by the way.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so, anyway, of course, we all need to we all need to make sure that the companies and individuals we buy from are honest and ethical towards all. However, I think what really needs to be done is a reduction of personal spending in general. Let's face it, even secondhand goods have to be transported, which burns fossil fuels. Therefore, pretty much all shopping is bad for the environment. And I would say that the first three steps should be we need to break away from the American attitude that fun isn't fun unless it costs money. 2, we need to put aside short-term luxuries for long-term wants and needs, like short-term luxuries such as takeout food. 3, we need to start with children. That is, when parents go shopping and their kids cry for something they want, parents should ask, "Where is your money?" I've been
trying that for a long time.
Get a job.
I should do it. Well, thank you. No, I think you're right. I mean,
that was wonderful.
Take a step back and look at what we're talking about, which is true. Our consumerism.
Kira's right. The moment they're out of diapers, get a job.
Seriously, I think that's what's going to happen under the new legislation. That's all the time we have. We say goodbye to you all listening on NEPM, but please tune in to the fabulous 413 starting at 3:00 this afternoon. Monty and Collies. Did I get that right? We'll check in with Congressman Jim McGovern, a great guy. This show continues here in Boston on GBH. We'll speak with former Sheriff Andrea Cabral, former Education Secretary Paul Reville, and film critic Odie Henderson. She is Margery Egan. I am Juliette Kayyem and not Jim Browdy. I am your guest co-host today. You're listening to BPR on GPH and NEPM. And streaming at youtube.com GBH News. I've got 15 seconds to spare. Are we having fun?
Let's go to CVS and break free the oil of Olay. Let's free the oil of Olay.
My advice to my younger self is not deep. Moisturize. That's all. That's the only advice. I've learned nothing else.
Be right back.
Bye.
It's not over yet. More smart conversation about community issues up ahead with Jim Browdy and Margery Egan on Boston Public Radio. Right after a news update from NPR. Stay with us here on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you and PNC Bank, who believes when you pay attention to the details, amazing things can happen. Like when you check the pockets of a jacket you haven't worn since last fall and find $20. PNC Bank. Brilliantly boring since 1865. The Great American Recipe is back. A new group of talented home cooks showcase signature dishes in this uplifting competition. Catch an all-new season of The Great American Recipe tomorrow night at 9 on GBH2.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Margery Egan. Ahead of the second hour of BPR, Karen Reid has signed a big deal for screen adaptation of her trial involving the death of her former boyfriend, John O'Keefe. We'll talk about that, plus the latest on ICE with former Secretary of Public Safety, Andrea Cabral.
And I'm Juliette Kayyem, in for Jim Browdy. Then, the Trump administration is suing Harvard again. We'll talk about it with former Massachusetts Education Secretary Paul Reville, and how the GOP spending bill impacts education and $100 million in federal funding withheld from Massachusetts schools. All that plus our so-called Two More Things segment next on the second hour of BPR on GBH 89.7.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Nora Rahm. A federal judge in New Hampshire says he will certify a class action lawsuit challenging President Trump's executive order ending birthright citizenship. He ruled the order may not go into effect for 7 days to allow the government to appeal. U.S. District Judge Joseph LaPlante said issuing the injunction was not a close call, that Trump's order would cause irreparable harm if allowed to go into effect. He said citizenship is the greatest privilege that exists in the world. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says he met with Russian Foreign Secretary Sergei Lavrov, and they discussed what he called a new and different approach for ending the war in Ukraine. He did not elaborate. Rubio said he wouldn't characterize it as something that guarantees a peace, but says it's a concept he'll take back to the president. The two men met in Malaysia on the sidelines of an annual summit. Rubio also says he's hopeful about a ceasefire in Gaza soon. His statement echoes President Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Obstacles remain as negotiators try to navigate final sticking points. Meanwhile, rescuers pulled 4 more survivors from the Red Sea after a Greek ship was sunk this week by Yemen's Houthi rebels. NPR's Ruth Sherlock has the latest.
The Houthi rebel group attacked the Eternity Sea bulk carrier vessel as part of a campaign to target any ships from companies that they believe could have had dealings with Israel. Houthi rebels say these attacks are a response to Israel's war with Hamas in Gaza. There were 25 people known to have been on board. Most are Filipino. A number are still missing, and in a statement claiming responsibility for the attack, a Houthi spokesman said the group had, quote, rescued a number of the crew. The US Embassy in Yemen has accused the Houthis of kidnapping the seafarers. Ruth Sherlock, NPR News.
Hundreds of mourners gathered last night in Kerr County, Texas, to remember those who died from last week's catastrophic floods. The Texas Newsroom's Lucio Vazquez reports from the Texas Hill Country, where at least 120 people died and more than 160 are missing.
Bleachers filled with grieving neighbors, all praying and singing together, remembering the victims. The vigil also included a tribute to Camp Mystic, which became the heart of one of the deadliest natural disasters in Texas history. Randy Rose, who grew up in the area, says the vigil gave the community a moment to breathe.
It was a time of healing. It was a time of trying to, get back to some normalcy and step away from the tragedy for a minute.
Rose says he felt lighter after leaving the vigil. Still, the community is bracing for long days ahead. For NPR News, I'm Lucio Vazquez in Kerrville.
On Wall Street at this hour, the Dow is up 211 points. This is NPR News.
Good afternoon from the GBH Radio Newsroom in Boston. I'm Henry Santoro. As of around 11 this morning, the National Weather Service says communities south of Boston have seen between 3 and 4.5 inches of rain, with much of the region still under a flash flood warning. Weymouth so far saw the most rain, with preliminary reporting showing it received over 4.5 inches of rainfall. In Milton, almost 3 3/4 inches have followed, while Hingham has received almost 3.5 inches of rain. The flash flood warning warning for communities south of Boston is in effect until 4 o'clock this afternoon. A federal judge in New Hampshire says he will certify a class action lawsuit including all children who will be affected by President Trump's executive order ending birthright citizenship and issue a preliminary injunction to block it, as we heard from our friends at NPR. Judge Joseph LaPlante today says a written order will follow. The order will also include a 7-day stay to allow for appeal. The lawsuit was filed on behalf of a pregnant woman, 2 parents, and their infant children. It's one of numerous cases challenging Trump's January order denying citizenship to those born to parents living in the U.S. legally or temporarily. In sports, the Red Sox host Tampa Bay at Fenway tonight. They're into the ladies' semifinals at Wimbledon. That rain should end this afternoon, high about 70 degrees, cloudy and 60s overnight. You've heard of Steven Tyler and Joe Perry. Well, here's Margery Egan and Juliette Kayyem, the Aerosmith of Boston Public Radio. This is GBH.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Fisher Investments. Fisher is committed to helping clients stay on track to reach their financial goals and enjoy a comfortable retirement. FisherInvestments.com. Investing in securities involves the risk of loss.
Okay, welcome back to hour number 2 of Boston Public Radio. Apparently, Juliette, you and I are the Aerosmith of Boston Radio, the Aerosmith girls of Boston Radio. Is that it?
I'm done.
Henry Santoro, we love him.
Henry, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. What would be best is if the next time that I guest co-host, like we got Aerosmith in here.
Wouldn't that be nice?
I'd be backup singer.
Yeah, really.
I mean, they would be great.
They are the best.
If you can't tell, we are just wasting time hoping that our next guest can get her Zoom issues fixed.
Well, we hope we can talk to her until she has her Zoom issues. Are we able to talk to her? We're not sure.
Yeah.
Our staff is going to tell us.
It's the rain.
So we have no one to talk to at the moment except each other?
Okay, I'll talk to you.
Okay, they're going to call her in a couple of minutes.
They don't even know who I am. You haven't introduced me yet. So.
Okay, let's get back. We went off script. We were so excited about the Aerosmith comparison. Okay, Juliette Kayyem is here filling in for Jim Browder, who's got the day off. Juliette Kayyem is a big deal. We see her on CNN constantly. She's also at Harvard's Kennedy School, and she also was the former Assistant Secretary for Homeland Security under President Barack Obama. She is CNN's senior national security analyst, and she had one of the best titles for a book ever. What was the title of your book? Living in the Age of Disaster.
You forgot the best thing.
What's the best thing?
Guest co-host.
Guest co-host.
Or as I call myself, summer filler.
That's right.
For GBH's Boston Public Radio. You guys have to have some days off. Also known as nap days, because as people who heard me the last time I guest co-hosted, what you do is so exhausting, and I do a lot of things that I had to take a nap, and I actually have a nap plan for today. I am. I'm going to take because I'm hosting again with him. There we go.
Naps are a wonderful thing.
We filibustered long enough, and now we have our guest. Okay, go.
Okay, hello, Andrea Cabral. We're glad you got your whole Zoom thing figured out, because I really wanted to talk to you today, and I'm going to start with. Hi, Andrea. By the way, you there? You're there.
Yes, I am.
Okay. Yay. Hi,
okay, just want to make sure. So I was asking yesterday about this. Karen Reed has signed this deal for a screen adaptation of her trial. People, I'm sure, remember, but I'll say it anyway. Karen Reed was accused of backing into her longtime boyfriend, John O'Keefe, a Boston police officer, when she had had too much to drink, and they had had an argument, and leaving him to die. But she was acquitted of everything in that case, leaving the scene of an accident, everything except for driving under the influence. Well, now she's cut this deal, and that means obviously that she's going to be able to make some money from selling this deal, and her attorney, I presume, is involved in this as well for the screen adaptation. And I wondered, we all remember the O.J. Simpson case, where O.J. Simpson, who was also acquitted for the murder of his wife and Ron Goldman, the young waiter that was at her apartment or her house the night of the murders, he was prohibited off this trial. And I'm wondering, how does this impact, if it does at all, Karen Reed's ability to make money?
Well, usually, and I think we touched on this a couple of weeks ago, I think when the verdict came in, I think on my segment that week, I touched on the idea that there was still a civil case pending, and that she would, they had they had sort of delayed her deposition in that case so as not to impact her Fifth Amendment right in the criminal case, but that now that the verdict was in, she would have to sit for depositions. But also that as part of a wrongful death case, or really any kind of civil case, it is very common for plaintiffs to make as part of their complaint, seek the court's permission to freeze assets in anticipation of a judgment so that a plaintiff is not allowed to get rid of assets or put them someplace where they can't be touched by a plaintiff should a judgment come in. And also, it is very common as part of a wrongful death case is the request by the plaintiff that if the defendant is found liable for wrongful death, that they not be allowed to profit in any way, which goes in some cases sort of beyond the idea of freezing assets to settle the judgment, but that they not be allowed to profit by that conduct. And keep in mind that civil cases and wrongful death, it's a preponderance of the evidence. Yeah. 50, just over 50%, is it more likely than not that she did this. And so the civil case, they've got pretty good odds on the civil case, unlike the criminal case where beyond a reasonable doubt is such a high standard.
Does she have to give them, my understanding is she got a whopping sum. Would she have to give it back if part of the penalty in a civil case, assuming that she won, would be that she can't profit from it?
Well, yeah, it depends on, it's not clear to me from any of the stories that I've read that the plaintiffs have taken affirmative steps to lock down, the saving assets, in anticipation of a judgment. But, there are two things going on here. First, there's the money that I am certain that she owes her lawyers. So part of this is Alan Jackson and those others negotiating deals for their own participation as a way to get, compensation for working on this case. But beyond that, I'm sure that she's still, as Alan Jackson said in his Vanity Fair interview, he estimates it was $1 billion worth of legal work, which she clearly doesn't have.
Hold on.
$1 billion? No way. I have been in litigation, corporate litigation.
Right.
That is ridiculous. That is ridiculous. That is, yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure he was being a little tongue-in-cheek, but it's a lot of lawyers.
Listen, this is her attorney said the $1 billion?
Yes.
Yeah. Listen, he should get nothing because the rest of his career is now made, and he is going to have high-paying client defendants for the rest of his life. So he should just consider this case an investment in his future house on the vineyard.
Yeah, there's never been a lawyer in history who has done that, no matter how much. Ethlie Bailey comes to mind, no matter how much a particular case might make their career. But the bottom line is that the plaintiffs have the ability to at least request of the court and then try to ensure as much as possible that Karen Reed does not profit from her conduct should she be found liable. And the way that you do that is by holding funds or potential income in abeyance until there's a verdict so that you can ensure that happens. So I don't think that this is as clear as her just signing on the dotted line and getting a ton of money and never having to worry about a civil judgment at any time.
So we still don't know for sure what could happen, but it may happen down the line depending on what happens with the civil case. That's the bottom line, I guess, correct?
And also, okay. I don't know what it was about this case that hit like a zeitgeist of our times. There's lots of crazy cases, but this wasn't just a Massachusetts case. This was like a national case. I had people, from around the country, like friends of mine saying it. And you just don't know how long that will sustain itself. It could be, she's going to get this deal and that deal. But by the time these things are done, people have sort of lost interest in the story.
Hold on. You missed my brilliant two more things yesterday when I talked about the Lizzie Borden case from 132 years ago.
But yeah,
there's 4 movies, more than 20 books. There's just a new Netflix thing is coming out. You would think that we know everything we possibly could know about Lizzie Borden, but I think it's weird. I agree with you. Certain cases just seem to catch a wave.
I mean, it's true of books. It's true of TV shows. Like, there can be, just like sometimes I'll read a book. This is going to be so rude. Sorry to interrupt, but like, this Gone Girl. Remember this book that like was mega.
That was a good
And sometimes
book.
I'll read a book and I'll be like, yeah, it was okay. And then I look around and it's like, oh my God, like millions of people are watching. I was like, how did that happen? Okay. But now we have to get to serious news, which is not fun, which is of course ICE. And what's happening in Boston, but also around the country. I'm going to ask you, in terms of your previous position, how would you think about dealing with masked law enforcement that now has $1 gazillion under this new budget? Their non-identification, their entry into areas that we once considered sacrosanct, and their total mistakes. I mean, it's worth saying that. They are taking U.S. citizens. They are deporting people to the wrong countries. They're losing track of things. The conditions that people are being sent to are not ready for prime time, like Alligator Alcatraz. And, we're 2 weeks away from a bunch of allegations about sexual abuse because it happens in every instance where you have overcrowding. So how does this end?
Well, the problem, obviously, is that it started in the first place. This is essentially militarizing a national police force using the Trojan horse of immigration, because the perception is that people care less about undocumented immigrants, and you can do whatever you want to them. It is being done to them in the context of these being civil cases. So as far as the Trump administration is concerned, why worry about due process? Why worry about constitutional rights, all of which are inure to non-citizens as well? We'll just do this way, and then you would move quickly in an authoritarian fascist regime. You would move quickly to using that same militarized police force against your own citizens. It doesn't have to be the National Guard. I don't think that people are anywhere near understanding exactly what is being done here, and nobody should mistake this for something that is happening solely around the issue of immigration. As with everything else that's been done by this administration years ago and now, there is a higher purpose. It is to anesthetize the people in the United States of America to the notion of militarized force against them.
Yeah.
It's to anesthetize them and numb them to being under an authoritarian regime and getting used to the notion that democracy no longer exists. And they say it right out. I mean, if you look at the CNN piece that I think his name is Todd Wolf, Zachary Wolf, I'm sorry, did in the CNN piece, the Customs, ICE is saying right out, Tom Homans and others are saying right out, get used to it. Yeah. We're not going anywhere, and there's nothing you can do as state leaders, as the public, as anybody to keep us from doing this. We're going to wear masks.
Yeah, and it's It's interesting, though, because much like on Ukraine, the Trump has, as we all know, let me just go back. As we all know, Trump has no clarity of policy, but he is good at understanding popularity and understanding the needs what he needs in term as an elected official. He's looking at these polling numbers. He's looking at what's happening to the farms, and while Tom Homan may speak a big game, much like Secretary Hegseth does at the Pentagon, they will get, they do not have the entire support of the President of the United States. So I sometimes wonder if Homan's talk like that is cocky because he's hearing that the farmers have no one to work in the farms.
Well, I mean, Trump is always going to do what moneyed interests want him to do, because they're the people to whom he is selling the country. So what they want always matters to him. But there's another purpose to it. So if you let up on him, and he doesn't really care about his base, they are a means to an end.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he absolutely despises them. These are the people he's been running from his entire life. He never wanted to be associated with them. But what this also does is move the country more toward this notion that you can give and take. Undocumented immigrants, you can let some of them stay as long as they continue to work under the conditions that moneyed interests want them to work under. So they're not going to organize. They're not going to become unionized. They're not going to become citizens. It is the closest thing to slavery you can have. So I get your point about Coleman sort of talking big, but knowing that ultimately Trump is going to make exceptions. Of course he's going to make exceptions. He makes exceptions because, as you say, he doesn't have policy that is supposed to govern the country. He has policy that gives and takes away based on his own interests and the interests of the people that he cares about. But this is also a way to further subjugate the undocumented people who he may continue to allow to live here because he needs them for cheap, or the people who run him or the people who own him need them for cheap labor. Like I say, there is a greater purpose to all of this. If anybody who reads a story like this in the newspaper and thinks that it is operating in a vacuum is wrong. It is part of a much larger picture that has to do with what this country will look like in 3 or 4 years. Well, and it won't look anything like the democracy of yore, nothing like it.
And don't forget, he talked before about American citizens being deported. Well, I mean, he did say that. But I just want to point out the budget thing, that as we know, this ICE now, under this so-called big, beautiful bill, which is nothing of the sort, is a higher funded law enforcement agency than the FBI, tobacco, firearms, drug administration, DEA, Marshal Service, and Bureau of Prisons combined. So that means
$75 billion.
Yeah,
of which I suspect $70 billion is going to his construction friends. I mean, honestly, I bet you when you look at the $75 billion, maybe it's going to hire some more ICE agents. This is a piece of the budget that his people, builders and construction, are going to get pieces of. And 5 years from now, and we know what happens to these facilities. But Andrea, I mean, to your point, what's worth noting, I mean, you're right in terms of citizenship. I mean, right now, the breaking news is birthright citizenship, but there's also another horrible thing that they're doing, which is, a lot of people have, I guess, constructive citizenship, reliant citizenship. They've been here for 20 years under legal status, and that's temporary protective status. And then out of the blue, Stephen Miller, Homan, and, the secretary deny them temporary protective status. This is true of a number of countries that right now, temporary protective status can last 20 years because we don't send people back to countries where they may be harmed. It's interesting. Those are people who were legal that are being made undocumented so that they can't be deported because they want their numbers. And just to remind everyone, their numbers, with all the madness, with all the craziness, with all the horror, their numbers are still lower than Trump 1.0 at this time, and of course Obama in both of his terms.
Well, the only saving
Biden was really the outlier.
To execute. Their inability to execute anything on a large scale because they don't understand governance and they don't understand how to do any of this, and he's put the most incompetent group of people in charge of it. That's the only sort of saving grace. But like I said, the taking away of legal status of people who have already been assured by the government that they have legal status is a means to an end. It brings you closer to being able to take those same rights away from people who were born here. Yeah. Birthright citizenship does the same thing, the very principles on which the country was founded. Taking those things away is a means to an end. It creates chaos. It creates uncertainty, instability. It is much easier to control people when they are afraid of what is going to happen to them as individuals. It is very difficult for people to get together to push back effectively against things like that when everyone is doing everything that they can to look out for their own stability in the country and their own safety in the country. El Salvador apparently just told the United Nations that contrary to the Trump administration's representations, that people who are being sent to El Salvador, who are not from El Salvador, this is part of the sending people to countries they're not from, to be sent into horrible prisons there as they're being deported. They said, no. Those people, we consider those people not to be our responsibility, as the Trump administration said. They are the Trump administration's responsibility. So lying consistently to the public about what is actually happening to the people who are being deported, in addition to creating larger and larger numbers of deportable people, is all part of that strategy.
Andrea, I wanted to touch on something local before you go. People may know, if you are indigent in the United States, you're entitled in a criminal case to get a lawyer. Small portion of those people get the public defenders, and about 80% of them, at least according to this Globe story, are represented by members of the bar, court-appointed attorneys called bar advocates. They've been on strike since the end of May because they're getting $65 an hour. They want to get a $35 raise, which seems entirely reasonable to me, but it's gotten to the point now where they're having to release people, including a guy who was charged with strangling almost to the point of, she did. She blacked out his pregnant wife, a very dangerous guy, and he was let out of jail because they had no one to defend him, and he'd been held too long. What do you make of this?
Well, I'm baffled by this idea that it isn't just as simple as paying them. When you look at what's at stake, and that we're living in these constitutional crises type times, why wouldn't you just pay them? What they're asking for is not unreasonable. Why? I don't understand why this is sort of a negotiation. When you had a bill that, granted they finally got the budget bill in on time, but you had a ton of earmarks for things like garages and gazebos and things that, how is something like this not at least as important?
I don't know.
In the garage in Quincy or any of the other kinds of things that are earmarked. I really just don't understand.
Has the governor said anything about it?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Has the governor said anything about it?
I don't know. If she has, I haven't read it.
I haven't. If she has, that's exactly what I was going to say. If she has, I haven't read her saying anything about it. But this is a crisis point. It's not that we haven't had situations where we've released defendants before. We have. But usually that's under a federal consent decree where you can only keep so many people in a jail. And if you go over that, you have to do bail appeals, and there's a process. They have to be released. They have a process here. They have these legality hearings. But this is a fundamental public safety issue. And since what they're asking for is not exorbitant, it is merely to be comparable with other states, I am baffled as to why.
We should, as a progressive state, we should think about criminal justice reform as also being about supporting strong public defense and not only look at it from the AG or prosecutor perspective. I think you're absolutely right.
So we should blame the legislature here.
I think the governor could settle it if she got involved. I just haven't been following enough.
I mean, they did have a guy who stabbed a stranger in the street. Right. It was so bad his intestines were showing. So they decided they couldn't let him out.
I mean, this is like the January 6th defendants. Like half of them now are back in jail on something else. You do not want to mess with this. And I hope that the legislature and the governor can understand that for a progressive state like ours, criminal justice reform is about also supporting indigent defense.
Andrea, thank you.
And it's important to show that we care about this stuff.
Yeah.
That we care as a state.
Yeah.
No,
it's.
Well, imagine this poor woman. She's pregnant. Her husband almost killed her, and he's going to get out.
Yeah. No, we're always stuck. No offense to my sheriff and prosecutor, but we're always stuck in the prosecutor mindset. So it's good to hear you say that.
Yeah, I would say she allegedly killed her. He's not been convicted at this point. Allegedly tried to strangle her.
Even the allegedly, I don't think we want him out. Okay, wait, it's my time. We've been speaking. Hello.
Thanks,
I'm still learning my cues. We've been speaking with former Suffolk County Sheriff, former Massachusetts Secretary of Public Safety, Andrea Cabral. Andrea, thank you for calling in. Sorry about your Zoom. Coming up after this quick break, former Massachusetts Education Secretary Paul Reville. I am Juliette Kayyem, in for Jim Browdy. She's Margery Egan. You're listening to BPR on 89.7 and streaming at youtube.com, GBH News.
trusted, local news.
The MBTA says imported train components that are needed for new orange and red line cars have been seized by the Trump administration.
GBH News.
The State Cannabis Control Commission has suspended a testing lab, accusing it of underreporting yeast and mold found in products.
Here for what matters to you.
High interest rates and economic uncertainty are slowing housing development and the transition to clean energy.
GBH 89.7. Online at gbhnews.org.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you. And Mass General Brigham. Their leading heart and vascular specialists are committed to providing breakthrough care to patients with cutting-edge research and innovative treatments. Learn more at massgeneralbrigham.org/heart. And Newport Mansions, presenting the 20th Annual Newport Mansions Wine and Food Festival, September 19th to the 21st at Rosecliff. Seminars, tastings, and a dinner experience with Chef Marcus Samuelson. Tickets at newportmansions.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Juliette Kayyem is in for Jim Browdy, who has a day off. We are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News, and we're going to be back live at the Boston Public Library tomorrow. Actually, Juliette's going to be with Jim tomorrow because I have the day off tomorrow. Anyway, we are joined via...
Summer filler.
That's right.
That's what I am. It's a good place.
I think you're spectacular,
Thank
Juliette.
you. I'm having
We're getting
fun.
a lot of nice texts from the listeners.
Thank you.
We're joined via Zoom by Paul Reville, former Massachusetts Education Secretary, Secretary of Education for Massachusetts, and a professor at the under siege Harvard. He's at the university's Graduate School of Education, where he also leads the Ed Redesign Lab. Hi, Paul.
Hello, Margery and Juliette. Good to see you.
Great to see you. Hope you're well.
I hope same for you.
He's probably terrible. I mean, he's in the middle of this horrible mess. I mean, we're going to start with Harvard. I mean,
are you terrible? You're not.
I'm not. Well, you got to balance. You got to find some equilibrium.
Yeah.
So we happen to be in the midst of a conference with people from all over the country who are doing local, place-based, cradle-to-career work that seems to be bipartisan in its nature and moving forward. So there's a lot of hope and positive energy there to counterbalance all the negativity we get day in and day out.
Okay, well, we're getting rid of the positive energy and going back to negativity here. I mean, there's Harvard right now. The Trump administration is imposing this 8% tax on Harvard's endowment. Other schools, big endowments too, Princeton, I think Yale, Stanford, they're getting their endowment tax up to 8%, and they're also trying to take away their accreditation. So there's endless attacks going on, continuing against Harvard University.
Well, I mean, every day you pick up the paper or we read our email, and there's a new angle of assault going on to try and cripple us in some way. The university is strong. The university has been around for 400 years. This administration has been around for 6 months and has 3.5 years to go. So we're quite confident that we will persist over the long run, and proud of the way our administration and leadership has been able to stand up. And but there's a lot of collateral damage that goes along to so many of our colleagues and to so much of the work that goes on at the university. And most of these challenges or incursions, if you will, by way of attack, will be proved in the end to be completely fallacious and ungrounded and unlawful. But we have to wait for the courts to churn that through, and that waiting period is agonizing for students, for staff, and for faculty. And I do need to make it clear, I don't speak for the university. I'm just a faculty member, and I speak as a faculty member, but I'm telling you what my experience is.
And I ask questions as a faculty member, so I get to ask one of you. I think it'd be helpful for people to hear just like, how has your experience as a professor at a school that I don't want to say it's progressive, but that a school that has sort of a social betterment of society bent, a school of education that has a high percentage of international students. Like, what does the fall look like for you, or how is it changing?
Well, it's number one, uncertainty and anxiety, because we have somewhere in the 40 to 50% range of international students at our school. This enriches our school and the kind of dialogue and the kind of courses we teach and the kind of research we do. We're not sure if all of them are going to be able to make it in. Because there are ongoing attacks on the ability of the university to accept these students, and a variety of attacks just along that line. Initial data suggests that students are signing on online to some summer coursework that they're supposed to be doing. We've been checking in as a school with a lot of these students and trying to help them with various visa issues. So, we think the numbers are looking pretty good right now, but still it's, that part is uncertain. As the university experiences cuts, for example, this endowment cut of 8% on the endowment income, this affects scholarship aid that goes to our students. It affects the kind of subsidy that comes from the university to schools like the School of Education, who are less likely to raise from alums funds that they can provide for their operating budget. So there'll be cutbacks there in terms of our operating budget, which will mean, in turn, our colleagues who work in various staff functions, we're already beginning to see layoffs in those areas. Some of our research colleagues who have research contracts with the federal government, exploring what works and what doesn't work in learning and curriculum and instruction and the lives of children and child development. A lot of that work has been interrupted, and people associated with it, not necessarily faculty, but students laid off. If our students don't return, we're going to need fewer faculty. So there's a lot of anxiety around it and a lot of uncertainty, and the administration is just consumed by having to come up with contingency budgets day in and day out, because, as I say, the threats change from day to day.
Right, and the asks change. It was less than, 2 weeks ago, the University of Virginia president was essentially, was told he needed to leave as a condition for UVA to move forward in their negotiations with Trump. His statement was good, I thought, in terms of I was leaving anyway, and I didn't want to bring the school down with me. But goodness knows what Harvard is going to ask in terms of personnel issues, since they've already crossed that Rubicon.
Well, we were deeply disturbed by what happened to Jim Ryan.
Yeah. He's a friend of yours, right? You worked with him at Harvard.
He was their dean.
Yeah.
He's our former dean. He's a friend. He's somebody who went back to Charlottesville. He'd been on the law school faculty there before he became dean here. He had always had an interest in civil rights and the law, and he kind of ran toward the fire after the Charlottesville march on that campus. He hadn't been looking for a job. They called him. He went there. He did a lot of things to strengthen that university. If you talk to anybody who said their kids at that university, they love the president. Students are just crazy about a president who interacts regularly with students and faculty. And somehow to have a federal government reaching in and determining who can be president of an independent university is just an outrageous overreach on the part of the
Well, tell us how this came about.
Well, I think in that particular case, I don't know all the details, but
it's the board, right?
Yeah, there is a board, but you have a Republican governor, and that board has been changing. So Jim was strong on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and civil rights and things of that nature. So he already had some board members who were not supporting him. And then the administration put pressure on and said, things are going to get worse for the university as a whole if you don't do something about this. And then you have a governor then in turn putting pressure, because this is a public university, but with a lot of private support. It just was, I think from his perspective, something that you couldn't really win, given the control of the board by a Republican administration.
Okay. Well, Paul Reville, it's easy for me to say because I'm not an administrator at one of these places and I'm not teaching at one of these places, but it does seem that we have learned a lesson from Columbia University, which is that you capitulate, you bend over backwards trying to please the president. He screws you anyway because they haven't gotten their $400 million back that he threatened to take away. And I think that's what your colleagues at Harvard are talking about, the professors' union. I know you're not involved in this movement, but they don't want Harvard to do deals with the Trump administration, even if it does promise some relief. I would imagine, number one, because they don't believe it actually is going to promise any relief, and they see this as a second capitulation, a disheartening one.
Well, I think so. I mean, if you have to learn from experience, and the experience in places like Columbia or Penn, have not been positive in the long run. They have given in to certain demands that in ordinary times would have been considered unreasonable, and in return for relating to those demands, they're getting more of the same.
Yeah,
it doesn't make much. It didn't make sense in the first place to capitulate because you're basically surrendering your autonomy out of concern that your budget might get upended by the administration.
And from the get-go, you are accepting the narrative, fake narrative, because they throw anti-Semitism out, like it's candy at the White House. You're buying their narrative that anti-Semitism or concerns about anti-Semitism, or maybe even real incidents of anti-Semitism, is the driving force of why the university needs to capitulate. They folded on Trump's grounds, and we all know this is a semi-Nazi sympathetic White House at times. We know there's Nazi sympathizers in it, so it is to me that was a frustration. But I feel this way about Paramount capitulating to Trump on 60 Minutes, and is that I hope that he does not give them the deal. I do. Because everyone has to understand he never stops, right? So they throw 60 Minutes under the bus because she thinks she's going to get a deal. I hope she doesn't get a deal.
Yeah, I hope not. Juliette, part of the thing is there isn't the evidence to back up these charges. So
exactly. Bogus charges.
Forward and on the basis of anti-Semitism, but you say, well, where's the evidence? So we know there were problems around October 7th. And there were problems.
And we addressed them,
There was Islamophobia, there were problems in anti-Semitism, and the university's bent over backwards. So no objective review of what's gone on at the university would determine we have a current persistent problem with anti-Semitism.
Instead, right. And if the administration ever acknowledged that there was a similar and I would argue a more horrifying report issued the same day about hate crimes and intimidation of Arab and Muslim students, perhaps we could get this university to better reflect the diversity of its students and their politics. But everyone forgets to mention that the anti-Semitism report was released the same day as the anti-Arab and Islamophobia report, and it's horrifying. It's horrifying.
I want to inject at this point that if the Project 2025 has a section in it called Project Esther, which essentially wants to wipe out Palestine, I guess, that you're supposed to be a persona non grata if you are defending the people in Gaza and the children there that have been killed and the people that are starving. But I wanted to ask you, Paul Reville, your friend that used to work with you at Harvard was the dean there, James Ryan, the guy that just got pushed out of University of Virginia. He's relatively young. He's 58 years old. Is he blackballed now from the university circles, or can he be rehired somewhere, or what happens?
I don't know what his plans are. I haven't spoken to him since this happened, although I'm deeply sympathetic with him and outraged by what happened. He will continue as a professor at the University of Virginia for as long as he wants, and he's a much admired educator. He was in some circles thought of as a future potential president of Harvard University at times. So, I think he has a very strong reputation in higher education, and
so he still has a job.
Yes,
he
that's
still
good.
has a job.
I was worried about him.
Will persist, and he will.
I think he had a bestseller. Like he's gonna, and you know what? A former president of a university would be a great spokesperson for why all of this matters, because too few university presidents, Harvard's is a great exception to this, but too few are speaking out.
So, Paul Reville, a big chunk of money is being taken away, of course, from K through 12 education all across the country by the Trump administration. $100 million is going to be taken away at a minimum from the Massachusetts schools. How big of a deal?
Well, it is a big deal, and it will have an impact in each of our school systems and affect their budgets, and suddenly they'll have a gap that they were counting on, a federal grant that had been promised. So this is a problem. In the long run, I expect these cuts will be reversed because they're inappropriate and illegal, and Congress has already made a commitment in this direction. But, it's like what we described earlier. It's the collateral damage in the meantime, because it takes the courts a while to get around to making a decision on these matters, and then it takes the administration a while to comply, if they do, with what the courts have asked them to accomplish.
Do we know if they've held this money only on blue states, or was this across the board? Was it
this particular one was across the board?
Yeah.
There have been threats of targeting particular.
That'd be hard to defend in court.
That would be harder. It doesn't mean they won't try to do that.
Well, that's what they're going to do. That's what's going to happen in disaster relief funds, which is right in these states. But that is exactly right.
So what about this national school voucher program, that you can get money from the government to go to private school?
In the
new legislation,
Yes.
Part of the new legislation sets up a situation in which you can get up to a $1,700 tax credit from the federal government for donating to a nonprofit, and then the nonprofit issues scholarships back to particular schools. So this is a federal incentive. It's not enough to be a full tuition for anybody to go anywhere. It's in keeping with the trend that we see across the country in Republican states, particularly in red states, to open up a back door on public education and basically turn the money over to the parents. And it isn't the full tuition because, of course, the money that we have, the money that we spend on education comes from three different governmental sources. From federal government at about an 8% factor, and then the balance coming from state and local in different proportions in different states. So one jurisdiction like the federal government only can control that money which it offers to public education, which is 8%. The danger in all this is that we're moving to a balkanized system of education. If we give people a back door out of the public system, which heretofore has educated about 90% of our students, we then set up a situation where people by income level, by ethnicity, by race, by religion, can set up schools of their own, homeschooling, and virtually all of this in many of the states that have done it is unregulated. In other words, the money's going out, but we don't know if the taxpayers are getting the benefit of having the children educated, which is not just an individual, it's not just a private good, it's a public good to have.
But the thing is, Jim is not here today, so Jim and I can't get into a big fight about the teachers union. He's in the tank with the teachers union. But I thought there was something very interesting in this piece, and you can agree. We can all agree that this is not really it's not a good system, the voucher system, for a bunch of reasons. But this guy that's the chief executive of the Democrats for Education Reform talks about how Americans, particularly blacks and Latinos, have lost a lot of faith in the public education system. And public education in rural areas and in big cities tends not to be something that a lot of people are necessarily happy about. We see the flight out of Boston all the time. And he talks about that the Democrats have to start realizing that the sense is that the public schools are not delivering in too many places, and they're losing support. And frankly, he's right. You see all these other schools that are able to work with poor kids in poor cities, and they're getting results. And then that isn't necessarily true in the public schools.
But that's it. But just to be clear, though, the federal legislation on these vouchers is not addressing this problem.
No, it's not.
Whether rich people can be paid for finding that back door from public schools. That is different than...
Yeah, but I guess the question is, how long do we have people, public schools deteriorating in large parts of the country, Democrats supporting teachers' unions, which are not really into big-time reforms, when it's starting to hurt Democrats.
It's a fair point. The person you're talking about is Jorge Olorza, who used to be the mayor of Providence. And was enormously frustrated with bringing about change in the Providence public schools, in part because he felt the teacher's contract there was highly restrictive and got in the way of progress for students. And he became extremely frustrated with that. There's a big difference between charter schools and vouchers.
Yeah, right.
Vouchers is sending the money, and in many cases, in many of these states, sending the money outside the system. And often with no regulation whatsoever. In other words, no accountability. Whereas charter schools, for example, in Massachusetts, and we have some of the top charter schools in the country.
But we don't want any more.
Well, there's been resistance to that, and that's another
2-1 got crushed.
But I used to say when I was in government, it didn't come down from the mount with Moses on tablets that only public municipalities could provide quality education. We know there are other kinds of providers, but if they want to do it with public money, they should be subject to to public laws. So it should be open enrollment, and it should be open meetings. And it should be fiscal accountability, and it should be measuring the progress and performance of students. That's a very different thing than what these vouchers are prescribing. The vouchers are just saying, take the money and run with it, and we're going to have a balkanized system in which anybody who can afford will escape the public system, and that will leave public schools to public education, what public housing is to housing. That's not a world.
Yeah, that's so important to remind people. I mean, there's one thing to talk about school options and school choice. These vouchers are an off-ramp.
No, nobody's.
They are an off-ramp.
I'm not cheerleading for vouchers. I'm just pointing out the political problem that Democrats have supporting a system which is failing.
You're right. That is a problem.
No, it is.
And
it's kind of like taxis and Ubers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll continue that analogy. On the other side, we've been speaking with former Mass Education Secretary Paul Reville, former Secretary of Education of Massachusetts, and a professor at the much targeted, much litigated against Harvard University and at the Graduate School of Education, where he also leads the Ed Redesign Lab. Paul, thank you. And thank you for reminding us good works are happening on the local level that you're hearing about. Coming up after this quick break, it's our Two More Things segment. I'm Juliette Kayyem, in for Jim Browdy. She's Margery Egan. We are not Aerosmith, but we've been told we could be the Go-Go's. So you're listening to BPR on 89.7 and streaming at youtube.com, GBH News.
China and Taiwan are home to some of the world's most prized regions for growing tea, but higher temperatures and extreme weather events now pose a major threat to harvests, slowing down plant growth and even altering the flavor of the leaves.
The tea makers are like, oh, what are we going to do now? Should we start making or do we wait?
I'm Ari Shapiro. That story on the next All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Support for our programs comes from you.
And Boston Children's Museum, featuring 100 Acre Wood, a Winnie the Pooh experience. Visitors can sort honey and acorns with Pooh Bear and Piglet, bounce with Roo and Tigger, or read one of Owl's favorite books. Tickets at bostonchildrensmuseum.org. And GM Roth Design Remodeling, dreams delivered, with custom kitchens, bathrooms, and additions. Serving New England for over 39 years. Learn more at gmroth.com.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Juliette Kayyem is in for Jim Browdy, who's got the day off. We are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We'll be back at the Boston Public Library tomorrow. Jim and Juliette will be together tomorrow because tomorrow I have the day off. So it is time for our Two More Things segment, where we put 5 minutes on the clock to highlight a story or an issue we didn't have time for elsewhere in the show. So Juliette, give us your little story for two more things.
I would like to discuss television.
Oh,
I like television.
Me too.
I'm not like, I'm reading a deep book. I actually like television. I like turning on the TV. Okay. I also, it turns out, like Matthew Good, and I'm going to explain who that is if you don't know. So I finished Hacks. I finished this season of Hacks. I'm a big Hacks fan, and I was like, okay, what can I watch next? What can I watch next? And I was asking around, and people, there's like a lot of like rich people shows on right now. There's like Friends and Neighbors, and then there's that one
Billionaires Club,
Sirens, and and I'm like, enough with rich people. Everyone started telling me about the show called Department Q, which is on Netflix. Is that right? Yes. It is absolutely incredible. It's so incredible that I was like, I have a show and I have a lot of travel and I'll watch it over the next couple weeks. I downloaded all episodes. I was one of those people where it was like 2:00 in the morning. I was like, I can do one more. I can do one more. So anyway, it is a dark yet charming, grimy, gothic, complicated, but all the pieces then at the end fit in together and they clearly clue into another season. And it's like the sleeper streaming show of the summer. I recommend it to everyone. It's got something for everybody. But I was just shocked. Like I haven't had that experience where like I'm streaming something and I'm like, oh, this is so good. Okay, now I just have talked about Matthew Good for 1 second.
Okay.
There is an actor named Matthew Good. People will remember him from, he's the lead in this, from Brideshead Revisited, Downtown Abbey. He was also in The Crown. This is like his like role.
So he's British.
Let's just
hubba.
say it's a good watch. He just commands the screen. He's charming but annoying and horrible and mean, but also you're like rooting for him with like his therapist in terms of a love interest. So I cannot wait to see the second season. So did I do 2 minutes?
No, that's perfect.
That's Matthew Good. I could do 3 minutes on Matthew Good.
Is it a little bit Nordic noir? Jim loves those Nordic noir shows.
It is. It's dark. It's cold. There's it's all happening on an island. Where does it take place? I forget. The island has a name, but I'm forgetting the name of it.
Isle of Skye.
And it's just it's just smart, but it's also fun to watch. So that combination, and it's not all about my house in Nantucket and the nanny died. Right, the nanny was murder. That's like every show now. It's like my fancy house in Nantucket and my husband's having an affair with my daughter's best friend. Like that's like I like this Department Q for everyone looking for a streamer.
Okay, mine is just a quick one that, it is a rainy day today, but soon it will be sunny again, we hope. A lot of sharks all over the place now. We had the pictures of the paddleboarders down at Woods Hole when the two young women are paddleboarding and all of a sudden one of them sees this great fin of a great white shark, goes by and it's a total panic. They happily escape, no problem. Now, up in the North Shore, up at the Cranes Beach in Ipswich, and they hadn't really had much sharks up there. Now they have to put in these new safety measures because they had a bunch of sightings of great white sharks last fall. Well, apparently some of them are coming back, so they have to worry about that. So now we have sharks on the Cape and the Wellfleet area, the National Seashore. We got them on the North Shore in Ipswich. We got them over in Falmouth at Woods Hole.
You know how I feel about this.
How do you feel?
I don't know. In the last decade, there's been one killing by a shark. Your kids are more likely to get harmed on their bike and their skateboard. Our knowledge is making us feel like the threat is greater. Sharks Sharks live in the water. We have surveillance that allows us to see them in ways we had never seen them before. But all I know is used to have that shark Velocity, whatever app, because I'm a surfer. And I would look at it, I was like, I finally got rid of it. I finally got rid of it because it was like, there's a shark in the water. And I was like, no, you should ping me if there's a shark on land.
Risking.
I want the land shark app. Don't tell me it's in the water. It's already in the water. Wait, we're thankfully out of time, I'm told. We've covered our 2 minutes. Matthew Good, just remember those 2 words.
Hubba hubba.
Coming up after the 1 o'clock news, Boston Globe film critic Odie Henderson joins us on summer movies, including Jaws. I'm Juliette Kayyem in for Jim Browdy. She's Margery Egan. You're listening to BPR on 89.7 and streaming at youtube.com GBH News.
GBH thanks all of our members whose gifts help power this station. And there are so many different ways to make that gift. Learn more about ways you can make an impact online at gbh.org/planning.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And Newbury Court, serving Concord, Massachusetts for 30 years as a not-for-profit continuing care retirement community dedicated to older adults. More at newburycourt.org. And Direct Tire and Auto Service, offering a full range of services, including brakes, shocks, diagnostics, and AC work. Direct Tire and Auto Service. Not just service, customer service. DirectTire.com.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Margery Egan. Ahead on the third hour of BPR on a rainy Thursday, Boston Globe film critic Odie Henderson talks summer movies. We'll talk a new Superman reboot, a directional debut getting high acclaim called Sorry Baby, plus the latest 7th entry in the Jurassic Park franchise. Can you believe it's been 20 years since the release of Brokeback Mountain?
And I'm Juliette Kayyem in for Jim Browdy. Then, the New York Times proudly proclaims this week, it's a great time to be a toe. I have thoughts. We'll open the phone line and text line for yours for a crucial summer conversation, toes in public, and Margery's favorite sub-issue, toe cleavage. When is it appropriate to wear open-toed shoes to let those piggies breathe? Weigh in next on the third hour BPR on GBH 89.7.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Nora Rahm. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is planning to fire hundreds of employees as part of a State Department redesign. The Supreme Court paved the way for the reduction in forces expected tomorrow. NPR's Michelle Kellerman reports.
Speaking to reporters on a trip to Malaysia, Secretary Rubio said he was proud of the way his department has planned a 15% reduction of workers.
We went very specifically through and reorganized the State Department. And when you reorganize the State Department, there were certain bureaus we wanted to empower the regional bureaus, and there were certain bureaus, these functional bureaus, that were closed.
He's closed 132 offices and rewrote the rules to be able to fire people who worked in them. Former diplomats of the American Academy of Diplomacy call it an act of vandalism and bad management of what they describe as an important resource, America's national security professionals. Michelle Kellerman, NPR News, the State Department.
On that trip to Malaysia, Rubio said he spoke with Russian Foreign Secretary Sergei Lavrov. He says the two discussed what he called a new and different approach to ending the war in Ukraine. He did not provide details. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is in Rome for a conference on how to help Ukraine recover after the war. He urged European leaders invest in Ukraine's air defense.
We must reach a point where Ukraine's air defense and drone sector is supported by over 30 countries and backed by hundreds of companies, not only from Ukraine, but also from Europe, the United States, and beyond.
He told European leaders that investing in Ukraine is in their own security interest, that Ukraine has advanced drone technology that it will share with its partners. A new analysis from NPR and data scientists finds at least 17 buildings and cabins at a campsite in central Texas were at greater risk than the government previously reported. The area was swamped with floodwaters, blamed for at least 120 deaths, with more than 160 others missing. NPR's Laura Sullivan has more.
An analysis by climate modeling company First Street found FEMA failed to properly account for the threat from rainfall when developing its maps. It wasn't just a problem at the camp. FEMA's maps undercount the number of homes in danger throughout the country. Data scientists say FEMA relies on tidal surge and river data, and the agency lacks funding and a mandate to update its process. NPR found special interest groups like home builders associations often lobby to prevent the agency from getting that funding. At Camp Mystic, NPR also found at least 8 buildings, including cabins for younger campers, located inside the floodway, a dangerous area expected to see high-velocity water. Laura Sullivan, NPR News.
Italian candy maker Ferrero says it plans to acquire the maker of Fruit Loops. It's buying Kellogg's for $3.1 billion. This is NPR.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Starting tonight, a large portion of the Red Line will be closed for weekend maintenance. We have more from GBH's Jeremy Siegel.
The shutdown is on the central part of the line, with no trains running between JFK UMass and Kendall MIT. That means if you're riding between Dorchester and Cambridge through downtown Boston, you'll have to catch a shuttle bus instead. Shuttles will be available at every affected stop except for Park Street. Buses will instead stop at Haymarket and State Street so riders can transfer to the orange, blue, and green lines. The T says there will almost certainly be delays. They're encouraging riders to build an extra 45 minutes into their trips. Regular service will resume Monday morning. Jeremy Siegel, GBH News.
And blue bikes will also be available to help you get where you're going. A federal judge in New Hampshire says he'll certify a class action lawsuit including all children who will be affected by President Trump's executive order ending birthright citizenship and issue a preliminary injunction to block that order. Judge Joseph LaPlante announced his decision after an hour-long hearing today and says a written order will follow. The order will also include a 7-day stay to allow for appeal. Lawsuit was filed on behalf of a pregnant woman, 2 parents, and their infant children, and it's one of numerous cases challenging Trump's January order denying citizenship to those born to parents living in the United States legally or temporarily. Red Sox host Tampa Bay at friendly Fenway tonight, 70 degrees in Boston. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include BetterHelp, committed to supporting mental health through therapy and helping clients find balance. Clients are matched with one of 30,000 therapists for online therapy from anywhere at betterhelp.com/public.
Welcome back to hour number 3 of Boston Public Radio. I am here. I'm Margery Egan, and Harvard National Security expert Juliette Kayyem is here because Jim Braude has the day off. We are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. And Jim and Juliette will be live at the Boston Public Library tomorrow for European travel guru Rick Steves, NBC 10's Karen Reed reporter Sue O'Connell, and Live Music Friday with singer-songwriter Debo. Thank you, Ray. Debo Ray, I should have forgot the last name there. But right now, we are joined on Zoom by the great Boston Globe film critic Odie Henderson to talk about summer movies, new ones and some
so
old
excited.
ones. Hi, Odie.
Hi, thanks for having me on, as always.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us. So let's start.
It's like your season. Like summer is like the movie season.
That is the movie. Well, supposed to be.
Actually, summer and fall because of the festivals. So it's the next since May until October or November. Yeah, it's my season.
Wait, I'm going to use a line that you often use in your writing. I digress, and I'm totally digressing. No. How many movies do you think you see in that period, or a year?
Probably about 300.
Wow. Oh my God. That's a lot of movies.
That's a lot of movies.
Lots of movies. Okay,
let's talk about some.
Let's start with a little sound from the Superman, the 2025 version of Superman, starring David Corenswet. Is that how you say his name? Corenswet?
Corenswet, I thought, but I don't know.
Okay, you probably know better than I do. Where Superman's dog, we remember the dog Crypto is misbehaving. Here is that.
Crypto! What the hey, dude? I thought you destroyed the whole Superman robots. I thought I told you to keep an eye on him.
We feed the canine, but he is unruly. And he realizes we are not flesh and blood and couldn't, in our heart of hearts, care less whether he lives or dies.
Stop, Crypto. Leave it. Ow. Stop. Ow, stop it. Crypto. Ow. Stop it. Stop. Sit. Stay.
So what'd you think, Odie?
Oh, Crypto is definitely a dog.
But the special effects, I mean, the buildings falling, it's so sophisticated now. For a thriller, I don't know. What do you do?
Well, I like this. It surprised me that I actually like this because, I'm not the biggest superhero movie fan at all. And I personally find Superman to be an exceptional bore. As a superhero, Christopher Reeve is the only Superman that I kind of accept here. Although David Corenswet, I'm sorry if I'm saying your name wrong, buddy, he's really, really good. I mean, he's the best Superman since Christopher Reeve because he's got charisma. Yeah. These movies have gone all so dark, And, Superman was never about darkness. He's about truth, justice, and the American way,
That's
as we
right.
say on the Hanna-Barbera Justice League cartoon that I grew up watching. And so this is it's much fun. It's fun. These movies are not fun. That's the big problem. They're not fun.
You mean like the Marvel, they're confusing. Yeah. Is this like these movies, you feel like you had to have watched 20 before you see the one that you're watching. So I've sort of given up on all of them because I haven't seen them. But this one, you can just sort of show up and it's a simple narrative.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you pretty much know who Superman and Lois Lane are. And, if you're deep into the comic, you know that whose dog Crypto is. I won't spoil it. And so I think you don't have. It's not like the Avengers where you have to see 14 movies to understand 5 minutes of plot. And it's funny because I have a comic book friend who I always turn to, so I don't sound like an idiot in my reviews because I don't know 80% of the stuff I don't know. So I wrote him as soon as I got it. I texted him, "Who the hell is Mr. Terrific?" And Mr. Terrific is a character in the movie, and he pretty much almost runs off with the film. But I didn't know who that character was. Green Lantern, I knew who that was. So what James Gunn does, he always brings humor and some emotion into his movies. I like the first two Guardians of the Galaxy. The third one leaned too much into animal violence, and it kind of turned me off. But all of his movies are like that. And he's got a mischievous sense of humor, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, because he came from trauma. Like Toxic Avengerland we're talking about. So you think about how raunchy and ruthless those movies are. He brings some of that to the universe. And I think it worked. I was actually surprised. It's also short.
Oh, good.
It's only 2 hours long.
That's my thing. I think any movie over 2 hours better justify itself. Like, it better be really good. It's like adapt with people's attention span. But I think books are too long. I think movies are too long. That's why streaming has become so popular, because it's like 57 minutes. You can have, a nice plot. Okay, but we have to talk about Lois Lane, which may be the best casting ever imaginable for people who loved The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. Because I saw the preview in the movie theater, and I was like, she looks familiar. Who is that? And then someone told me, oh, that's Mrs. Maisel.
Oh, she's great in the movie. I could not stand that show. But she's great in the movie. She's a great Lois Lane. I mentioned in my review that the best scene in the movie, the best battle scene in the movie, has no CGI in it at all. It's between Lois Lane and Superman. She interviews him. And she just takes him behind the woodshed, and it's a great scene because it shows the chemistry between the two actors. It shows the relationship between the two characters, and it also shows journalistic integrity, which I'm working for a newspaper.
That's right.
For.
Okay, so we got thumbs up for Superman. Now, I don't know how many Jurassic Park movies there are. 7.
Oh,
okay.
my God.
I was surprised to see such Scarlett Johansson in this latest remake. But anyway, here's a little clip from the trailer for Jurassic World Rebirth.
We need DNA from the 3 biggest dinosaurs. Do we have to get a sample from an egg? I suppose we could try and get it from the parent, but they're a flying carnivore the size of an F-16.
Maybe we should make it quick.
These dinosaurs were too dangerous for the original park. Please don't say they're raptors. They're raptors. The worst of the worst. We're left here.
Okay.
David Koepp, who's been very busy this year, he wrote Black Bag, which is fantastic, and Presence, which is not fantastic, but still better than this. He wrote the original 2 Jurassic Park movies. He wrote the original Jurassic Park with Michael Crichton, who wrote the novel, and he wrote The Lost World, which I have some affection for because it's so mean and nasty. The sequel to Jurassic Park. This is his return to the franchise after The Lost World. So he's been gone for 4 movies. Yeah. So he's come back, and that gave me some hope and optimism. And then I got to see the movie, and it's just basically, they don't care about the dinosaurs anymore. The dinosaurs used to be the star of the movie, and now they're just throwing them out, these mutant dinosaurs. They don't even identify them by name anymore. And so the movie is just as disinterested in the dinosaurs as you will be watching this. The upside is you have Jonathan Bailey, who I saw on the West End do Getting Married Today in Company, where he was fantastic.
Oh.
He's the best thing in the movie. He's kind of like the nerd with it. He called them his slutty glasses. He's wearing these glasses, his words exactly. And he's cute, so there's some eye candy here for you. And he's takes a nice turn on the typical science nerd character that you find in these movies. And Scarlett Johansson is not convincing as a mercenary. I'm sorry, ScarJo. Mahershala Ali is much more convincing. And then there's this entire family, because they need enough people for dinosaurs to eat, or at least threaten to eat. So they bring an entire family in. This guy that's in the middle of the Atlantic with his kids, and they're just the most obnoxious characters. When the movie dies, whenever they're on screen. So there's not much here. And again, I skipped the last 2 Jurassic Worlds. Okay,
you didn't even watch them. Like it was not worth a review.
Well, this is a reboot, so technically you don't really need those other ones.
Oh,
to kind of they kind of bridge the gap here in the opening scene. They explain to you what has been going on in the prior movies, so you don't really need them at all. I do want to point out that Jurassic World Rebirth does not have a colon between World and Rebirth. I got yelled at by Universal. This has been a problem this season. Karate Kid Legends does have a colon in it, but it doesn't have it on the title on the screen.
Wait, they called you to change your copy?
Oh yeah, they were like, you need to take this out of.
What did they do? Because they were probably waiting for your review. They were mad at the review, not at the.
No. I hadn't reviewed it yet. I was just doing a summer preview.
Oh, God. I tell you, it's all in a semicolon, Juliette.
I know you would have liked it if it had a semicolon. I think that.
I would have rejoiced.
I have to say, as an older lady. No one should replace Laura Dern. Laura Dern was the best, and no one will replace her. So they should have ended the franchise when she was done.
Why does Scarlett Johansson? She's a very
money. Margery, do you know how much do you think she got paid for this?
Yeah,
she probably gets a percentage. All that stuff.
Okay. They got to pay for that boat that Colin Jost bought here in Staten Island.
Yeah.
Oh, didn't know that. It's a big boat? Big boat?
It's a ferry. He bought one of the Staten Island ferries.
He did?
Come on.
Yes. No, I'm not making this up. He makes jokes about it on SNL. Because he's from Staten Island, and I don't know.
He's
married to Scarlett Johansson.
I know. What else are you going to do?
Okay. So let's move on to something that you talk about, Cooley High, 50 years later. And obviously, this you wrote a beautiful piece about this. This is huge in your childhood, your teen years. So people don't know. Oh, do we have a little sound from Cooley High? Yes, we do. Let's play the sound first. Get us in the mood. Okay. This is from 1975. The 2 main characters are high school students. They find out they're too broke for the local prostitutes, so they try their luck and convincing the woman they're cops instead. Here we go.
Look, man, I just got out yesterday. See, give me a break here. Man, I ain't made up yet. Oh, come on now. What do you say? Here, give me a break.
Well,
Here.
we take bribes.
How much you want?
How about $20?
No, he said $10. $10. Here.
Wait a minute. The Lone Ranger. Girl, they trying to stick us up. There ain't nothing.
Okay. For those who haven't seen it, tell us why this movie still holds a place in your heart.
Well, Cooley High turns 50 this year, and I saw it back in 1976 on a double feature with Cornbread Earl and Me, 2 movies that influenced Boys in the Hood, I should say. Lawrence Fishburne, who was in Cornbread Earl and Me, is the star of Boys in the Hood, as you know. And so in my book, Black Seasons and Fox City Apparatus, I devote a chapter to this movie because it came out in 1975, and it is blaxploitation adjacent, and it's directed by Michael Schultz. And what's important is that they used to call it the Black American Graffiti. You know, American Graffiti was Lucas's teenage years on the screen when he was in California. This is Eric Monti, the writer's teenage years in Chicago, on the near north side of Chicago, where Cooley High actually does exist. And so it was the first time you really had a remembrance of Black characters on the screen. You had smaller things like maybe Sounder, but Sounder's a period piece. And then Cooley High is technically a period piece, takes place in 1963 or 4, if I'm not mistaken. But it's the first time you really got a nostalgia piece specifically geared toward Black people and their experiences. So Eric Monti went on to create Good Times. He also created George and Weezy Jefferson. And what's happening... Yeah, and what's happening is a spinoff of Cooley High. They tried to make a TV show out of it. It didn't work, so it morphed into What's Happening, the sitcom that was on in the 70s. So it had a great place in my heart because it's one of the first movies I remember crying at. as a kid. And then as I got older and I worked in the video store, it was a rental a lot. And it was also on TV quite a bit here when I was growing up. So I wanted to expand from what I'd written in the book, because I only had so much space for a chapter, to talk about some of the other things that were in the movie or what the movie had done and its influences, especially on things like Boys in the Hood.
Was it, when it came out, was it popular, and was it thought to be sort of, a significant moment in terms of reflecting Black America?
Oh, absolutely. AIP, and I mentioned this in the book, they gave you X amount of money, and that was it. Yeah. If you went over that, you had to pay out of your own pocket. Coolie High was a huge hit for American International Pictures. I think it was one of the biggest hits of 1975 in terms of being an independent film. So yes, it was a hit. And it has, It's So Hard to Say Goodbye to Yesterday, the song that Boyz II Men sing. Yeah. That comes from Coolie High. And I always argue with people about that because they think that Boyz II Men originated that. Yeah. But my 8th grade class, we sang that. I graduated in 1982. So, sorry, folks.
You have, speaking of graduations, you mentioned in your piece that your 8th grade graduation ceremony featured you and your classmates singing the film's original song, It's So Hard to Say Goodbye to Yesterday. So was that a spontaneous thing, or was it a planned thing, or
no,
what?
In New Jersey, at least back when I was going to grammar school, your graduation was a performance. Yeah. We had choreography. We sang 6 songs. I was valedictorian, so I got to do a speech. Yay!
Wow. I didn't know that.
Historic speech. Everyone remembers it.
And I graduated 2 years ahead of myself, so I was not only doing a speech, but I was also shorter and younger than everybody in the class. And so we marched out. It was choreography. We sang 6 songs. We sang a Sondheim song. Yeah. And we sang It's So Hard to Say Goodbye to Yesterday, which was very popular back then. That's why Boyz II Men recorded it.
Okay. I know that song. Well, on our journey through memory lane, you've recently written, and it's hard to believe, the 20th anniversary of Brokeback Mountain, and now watching it again as an adult, what was your reaction to it 20 years later, given your reaction to it 20 years ago?
Well, I saw it at the same theater I saw it 20 years ago at, because it's been re-released for the anniversary.
Which theater was that?
The AMC Empire 25. I have a nickname for it I can't say on the radio because they'll sue me. But everybody that reads me on social media knows what it is. And so I had the same problem I had with it 20 years ago. I felt like it's a good movie. Heath Ledger, he got robbed of the Oscar. He deserved the Oscar for this. Sorry, Philip Seymour Hoffman and Capote. But the bigger issue is that Crash won Best Picture.
Horrible.
Which of course is a bad movie.
Oh.
I don't even think it's in my top 10 worst Oscar
Couldn't
movies.
believe it won.
It's bad though.
It is bad.
It surprisingly it won, and that was the big controversy. A bigger controversy than Heath Ledger losing the Oscar for actor. There's the big controversy over it, and my problem with it is kind of the same problem I have with Saving Private Ryan. Yeah. Is that it's a movie that, for its time, feels like an old-fashioned movie. There are things that they couldn't do in 1945 World War II movies they can do in Saving Private Ryan. Same thing with Brokeback Mountain. Yeah. But at the end of the day, it still falls into the trap that if you were gay, you had to either suffer miserably and or die.
Yeah.
And so that was always a problem I had with the movie. It's a good movie. I gave it a good review. I think I understand why people love it so much and why it's so important to my community. Yeah. But again, at the same time, I felt like, one, it's too afraid of scaring off straight men. And 2, again, here we go with, you can't love somebody, you got to die, or you have to, see someone once a year for 20 years. The short story is actually, a lot more. It follows the same. It's faithful.
But the last scene in Brokeback Mountain actually suggests, just because it's timeless, so it moves forward when society begins to sort of accept gay couples. It gives a little bit of hope at the end that there's going to be another path for maybe not gay cowboys, but gay men. So, but that didn't ring to you as sort of being more positive now.
I think Ang Lee was more comfortable doing The Wedding Banquet, which is the gay theme movie he made in Taiwan.
That's right.
This. than this film. And again, I don't like jumping all over Brokeback Mountain. It's a good movie, and it damn sure didn't deserve to be beaten by Crash.
Yeah.
Okay. We have to play some sound from Brokeback Mountain because, most people like me that aren't film critics, what I most remember about Brokeback Mountain is I couldn't believe how handsome Heath Ledger was. Everyone in the world would want to be having sex with Heath Ledger, straight, gay, bi, whatever they were, because he was so gorgeous. So let's hear, you'll hear Jake Gyllenhaal speaking first and then Heath Ledger. They're confronting each other about their complicated feelings.
You son of a bitch. I wish I knew how to quit you.
Then why don't you just let me be, huh? It's because of you, Jack, that I'm like this. Nothing. I'm nowhere. Get the f*** off me!
It's all right.
It was a tearjerker, though. Yeah. It was
it is. And people made fun of that line, I wish I knew how to quit you. I actually have it in my subtitle, I wish I knew how to quit, feeling that I underrated this movie. But, this is just my feeling about it. And I understand why it is the way it is. But, I felt this way 20 years ago. It's not like I'm having this sudden moment of, well, things are better now. Yeah. They're not really. But I felt that way 20 years ago. That's the reason why I committed to it, but I could not submit fully, as most people have, to this movie. But I completely understand why it's a romantic classic for many, many people.
Yeah, and clearly should have beat Crash. Okay, we don't have much time, but if we're going down memory lane, can we do a few minutes
Jaws,
on Jaws?
Yeah.
I know you've already talked about it, but
you were there at the scene of the crime.
You were in Martha's Vineyard.
You went out there to Martha's Vineyard. We're so impressed.
Without your cell phone service, apparently, and that was that was roughing it for you. He's in Martha's Vineyard, and he's like, I don't have phone cell service, but I'm glad you made the ferry.
Well, that was the only part that was scary. I don't necessarily, it was a party, an open bar. I didn't need my phone, but I needed my phone to get a lift to get away from the party so I can catch the boat. That was when things became sticky. But I had never been to Martha's Vineyard. So this is an adventure for me. So I did 7 pieces on Jaws for the paper, including a quiz. Take my Jaws quiz. And the last piece is about my adventure in Martha's Vineyard. And you couldn't throw a stone without finding somebody that has something to do with Jaws. Yeah. And I don't think any place else in the world has this. Yeah. That's so tied to a specific movie. And so many people had something to do with it, or their grandmother was in it, or they were in it as a little kid. They snuck in on the set and Spielberg didn't catch them. And I got a nice 20-minute dissertation on how Bruce the Shark works.
Oh, yeah, Bruce. Oh.
And people would think that would be boring, but I love process. I love hearing about how stuff works. And I would never hear it again from the source, from the guy who was actually working on Bruce. Right. This was a once-in-a-lifetime event for me to hear. Of course, the paper's you can't put all this stuff in here. No one's going to want to read this crap. But I enjoyed his conversation.
Bruce was the cranky fake shark, which led to long delays in the movie, but might have been a silver lining for Steven Spielberg because it required him to focus more on the characters than on Jaws, which is what we remember Jaws for. It's scary, but we also love the 3 main characters.
And the suspense level. The suspense with John Williams and Verna Fields saved Spielberg's career. Verna Fields is the editor of Jaws. She won the Oscar, and deservedly so. I saw Jaws at TCM Festival in April. Lorraine Gary was there, who played Mrs. Brody. Oh, yeah. And at the Martha's Vineyard screening, which I got to see approximately 45 seconds of, Ben Mankiewicz and Richard Dreyfuss were there. Richard Dreyfuss played Hooper, obviously, in Jaws. Jaws 2 is the movie Jaws would have been if the shark had worked.
Yeah. But the best one is still the original. We're almost out of time, really, but real quick, the best one is the original. Yeah, that's what everybody seems to.
Okay, give a 10-second on the movie that you like that's new.
Oh, we didn't get to it. Yeah, real quick.
Oh, no, Sorry Baby is great. You should go see that. Sorry Baby is excellent. There's also a movie called Familiar Touch. It's playing at the Browder this week. It's about a woman who is slowly succumbing to dementia, but it's not a downer at all. It's a fascinating film. But if you have to pick one movie this weekend, see Sorry Baby. It's a great movie. It's about trauma, but again, it's not a downer. I found it to be fascinating, one of the best movies of the year. And good. Life of Chuck, which I will constantly promote until, people get sick of me saying Life of Chuck.
Yeah. Thank you, Odie. Everybody,
I'm seeing Formula One this weekend.
Oh, Formula One.
I know. Look, he gasped. I know. I'm a big fan.
It's not great, but it's not terrible.
That's Brad Pitt.
Odie Henderson, thank you for your great work, and thank you for taking the time to be with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, folks.
Have a good
day.
We've been speaking with Odie Henderson, film critic for the Boston Globe. Odie, thank you again. Coming up after this quick break, we're opening phone and text lines. A bold claim in the New York Times this week. It's a great time to be a toe. Open-toed shoes, toes in public. Weigh in next. I have a lot of thoughts. 877-301-8970. I'm Juliette Kayyem, in for Jim Browdy. She is Margery Egan. And you're listening to BPR on 89.7 GBH and streaming on youtube.com GBH News.
I'm Arun Roth. Coming up on GBH's All Things Considered, Boston Mayor Michelle Wu is promoting a program aimed at reducing shoplifting. A criminal defendant's right to an attorney isn't optional, it's constitutional. But in Massachusetts, a public defender strike is threatening that guarantee. Plus, climate change is threatening the world's best tea, and growers in China and Taiwan are racing to adapt. Those stories and all the day's news starting at 4 on GBH's All Things Considered.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you. And Maine Maritime Museum, offering oyster tasting cruises throughout the summer. Visitors can learn about aquaculture from Maine's oyster farmers and experience freshly shucked oysters. MaineMaritimeMuseum.org. And Rockland Trust Bank, committed to helping individuals and local businesses work towards their financial goals by providing financial advice and resources. More at rocklandtrust.com. Rockland Trust Bank, where each relationship matters. Member FDIC.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Margery Egan and Juliette Kayyem was in for Jim Browdy. We're streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Jim and Juliette will be live at the Boston Public Library tomorrow, talking with the great travel guru Rick Steves and much more. Okay, here's a headline I never thought I'd see in the New York Times, but you mentioned it. Quote, "It's a great time to be a toe," unquote. In this recent piece about sandal fashion, the Gray Lady Times shares an anecdote about a 25-year-old who matched his navy blue suit, this is a guy, with a pair of flip-flops for a business meeting. Apparently, it is open-toe season in the Northern Hemisphere, and the perfect opportunity to dip our toes into some long-standing debates about feet and footwear, pedicures, and nail polish. Jim is not here today. He, of course, suffers from Morton's toe.
Of all the things to talk about Jim,
he's out here. He claims he doesn't have Morton's toe, but he does. The number is 8. That's when your second toe is bigger than your big toe. 877-301-8970 is a number to call or text. How do you feel about sandal season, about toe ring fashion, about men in flip-flops? And my favorite related issue, of course, is toe cleavage. That is supposedly the sexiest way to display your toes, when you can see your big toe top and a little bit of the second toe, and there's a little cleavage in between. You can't do that.
Most men I know prefer the other cleavage. It's a nice try to normalize it, but anyway.
Okay,
we are going down. The last half hour, you and me talking about
That's
toes.
right, down and dirty. No pun intended. What footwear bandwagons have you probably hopped on? What sandal trends have you rolling your eyes? Outside of the trek from your car to the beach, is there ever an appropriate time to be walking around in those cheap foam flip-flops? Has someone you can't stand the sight of showed their feet to you, and their feet are even worse than the rest of them? What about thong sandals? I didn't even know such a thing as thong sandals. And I just spent about 15 minutes on Wiki Feet looking at the feet of
we
all
were
these
prepping for the segment, and I spent 2 minutes, and I'm looking over and I'm like, what are you studying?
The feet. I saw the feet of LeBron James. I saw the feet of Joe Jonas. I saw the feet of Katy Perry.
Can I begin
Jennifer
here?
Lopez,
Are we done
Shakira.
with this horrible introduction for a horrible topic? Okay, I'm in true confession. I have horrible feet. I have bunions. I tend not to I wear sandals every once in a while. So this is just true confession that I am entering this conversation with just a negativity about feet. My feet are ugly. I know you had bunions.
I did.
We already talked about this.
I got the operation.
She got
They're
the surgery. I did not get the surgery because I don't want to be in casts for 6 weeks.
The bunionectomy.
My feet are disgusting. I'm just okay. So to all the listeners, I'm just saying, I have many fine attributes. I am. The feet is not one of them. And now every time I go out in public, people are going to be like, "Oh, you're right. Your feet are disgusting." The other thing, very important point.
Yeah.
We need to normalize, you and me alone, woman power, the go-go's, as we've been talking.
Yes.
Normalize male pedicures. Men.
Absolutely. Go for it.
No one is judging you.
No.
In fact, we will love you more.
They're wonderful.
You know, any man I know, family members, husband, whoever, normalize male pedicures. That's going to be, I think I'm going to quit, and that's going to be my new job. I'm seeing more of them. I'm even though I hate my feet, I do like pretty toenail polish. So I get my nails done like maybe once every 2 or 3 weeks and pretty regularly. And I do see more men in the salon. But I think men, man up.
Man up.
We are not judging you. We are judging you well. For the pedicure.
Here's the number.
We would love it.
877-301-8970.
My sons have like dagger toenails.
They have dagger toenails?
That's what pointed. This whole thing about gift giving. We were talking about this and give a gift of an experience. We should all give all the men in our lives pedicures.
When you say dagger toenails, you mean they're pointed at the end? Oh God,
like
a vampire kind of thing?
The whole thing. I'm bad parenting. I'm a bad mother. But anyway, I've now left my career and normalizing male pedicures.
Okay, here's the deal. We want to know about how you feel about your toes, how you feel about other people's toes. Would you like to see a man in a business suit wearing flip-flops? You may not think your toes are attractive, but Juliette, this is a texter or this is somebody, I guarantee you some guy on the internet does. That's right. There are bunion fetishes,
Trust me. Those men on the internet, if they only like my toes, I'll be happy.
Well, toes are really in. It's the season of the toes, apparently. It's called the foot-assance, as in Renaissance. Yeah. So it's not the Renaissance, whatever you want to say it. Renaissance, foot-assance. That's where we are now. Toes apparently are the new legs. You can call
interesting.
Them. Yes.
Yeah, that's a problem for me.
Toe cleavage has always been big, but people are really into the manicured toe now.
Yeah.
And they have pictures on WikiFeet.
Do you know Tom Nichols from The Atlantic?
Yes.
So he's got...
He gets pedicures?
No, I don't know, maybe he does, but he's got like this whole thing on Twitter about flip-flops and barefootness and like the whole he basically judges the downfall of America by how much toe exposure there is in the world. I just have to say that, yes. And I'm beginning to agree with him. I used to not notice how often people take off their shoes, but I think because I read him, I'm now noticing it. Yesterday, the person next to me on the plane, shoes off. Can you believe that? I know. I couldn't.
I don't think I'd like that either.
No, it's just, people don't take your shoes off in public.
Isn't there some new rule about shoes on airplanes?
I hope so. Oh, yeah. But the other way, we have
That's TSA.
TSA. Oh, you know what? We should complement the new TSA rule that you don't have to take your shoes off. You must keep them on when on the plane. That's my new thing.
I think they should
unless
be.
You have unless you change into slippers. But anyway, I basically have nothing more to say about toes because I hate my feet.
Well, we hope there's other people who have lots
sandals.
of things to say about toes because we're talking about that right now. The number, again, 877-301-8970. I forgot to mention toe rings. Apparently, those are really big, too. And you have to decide what type of toe ring you want to get. If you have a Morton toe thing like Jim, you could put a big cigar band on your second toe because there's plenty of room. But if you have dentier toes, you're more like a little engagement-style solitaire. And some people are actually putting diamonds on their toes.
Yeah. Steve.
Hi, Steve.
Steve, I'm here for you. Steve.
Where are you on the great toe debate?
My wife just gave me a gift certificate for my birthday, and I'm gonna get it in the next week or two. She said, "Oh, did you just clip your nails?" I just clipped my nails. So I need to let them go, I guess.
Well,
there any
okay,
other
so is
advice
this
you
your
have?
first pedicure?
Yes,
Oh my God, how old are you?
65.
So you've
About time.
You've had more colonoscopies than you've had pedicures. Okay, I'm just going to put this. Okay, so you don't worry about it. This is much better. Okay, so just don't they'll take care of everything. First of all, your wife loves you for doing this.
That's
this is
right.
Fantastic gift. Tell her A+ on the gift giving. And I'm now inspired for everyone I know. I'm getting pedicures for all the men in my life. But you just sit in a chair. They ask if you want a little massage, so you could get the rollers in the chair. You put your feet in water. They're going to do all sorts of stuff and cut them, clean them. They might do like a little bit of stuff like massaging, and it just will be a really nice 45 minutes. And you're probably not going to get toenail polish, so you just get to exit easily.
Steve, that was a great call. And don't forget to use the back massager. You sit in
the
those
rollers.
chairs with the back massage. You get a 45-minute back massage, and then they put the hot cloths on your feet.
But Steve,
they take out this thing, like a vacuum cleaner that sucks off all the dry
Steve,
skin.
I want all men to listen to this. Steve, in his 60s,
That's
has
right.
never had a pedicure before in his life. His lovely wife gets him one, and this is a new era. I am normalizing male pedicures. This is what public radio is all about.
Okay, here is, listen to this. Hello, Margery. My husband has Morton toe, too. It's horrible. His feet are hideous. I find my husband handsome. I like his physique, but his toes and feet are just horrible. He really needs to keep his socks on. Horrible toenails. And, of course, he has a crush on Jim. And, of course, they would both share Morton's toe.
Of course. Again, I've run out of things to say because I hate my feet. But I'm going to support normalizing male pedicures.
Here's another texter who says, my husband's feet scare small children.
Yeah, there's so much stuff about women and their feet and their sandals, and we have just switched the table on this story.
Okay.
And we're now, but we've got Karen. Karen, come on.
Hi, Karen.
Karen.
What do you think?
Hi.
I disclose to you my true confession, and you come back with salt in the wound on this one. Listen to what Karen has to say.
Yes. So a group of my friends, we always rent a house, and we go to Hampton Beach. And so they declared that my nickname is going to be Pretty Feet. Because we're all sitting on the beach. And I have to admit, my feet were the nicest feet out of the whole group.
What size are your
now
feet?
I am pretty feet.
What size are they?
7.
7. That's a small. That's a nice little small foot. So, give us a description. What's so pretty about your feet? Are they just the toes are in exact order? No Morton's toe there. No bunions.
Yes.
No corns.
I don't have any.
Everything.
I don't
She's
have any
perfect.
corns. I don't have any Morton's feet. To me, they just look like normal feet.
What's the secret?
Apparently.
Karen, what's the secret to your success? Is this a hereditary genetic thing? Did you inherit the pretty feet, or what's the deal? Did you do workouts on your feet?
Well, I am pretty athletic, especially when I was younger.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I definitely did not inherit them because my mother's feet were horrible. And my father's feet were horrible.
There you go.
And I grew up with 7 brothers, and that's all I could say.
Well, this is your consolation prize, right? I mean, you get the pretty feet.
Yeah.
I will say the headline, the subheadline in the New York Times story, sort of talking about feet and toes and all the new styles. It's called an orgasmic exhale for the foot. So
there you go.
You should pick it up because it's going to have suggestions for what shoes you should wear. Unlike me, who, as I said before, I have ugly feet. I will say one thing, though. Thank you so much, Karen. I will say one thing.
What?
The other thing I like about pedicures, as I spend the next 15 minutes normalizing male pedicures, is, and trust me, we will thank you for it, is the crazy nail polish color names. That's a whole thing.
Oh, yeah.
Any woman who gets her nails done, I don't put color on my hands. I do put it on my toenails. And anyone who's experienced the having to choose will encounter names like Make-'em Jelly, Strawberry Margarita, that's Hilarious. Oh, I didn't do that right. Cajun Shrimp. That sounds like a weird color. A good Mandarin is hard to find. That's good. I like that one. Easy Bikini Sotini.
Oh.
You know, these are the great. This is. Lots of people are paid lots of money to come up with these names. Okay.
Okay.
I know
We
we're
had a
not supposed to.
couple of
I'm
texts.
changing. I know we're not supposed to talk about this. But
What? What do you want to talk about?
we're supposed to be talking about toes, and I'm talking about feet.
It's okay. Here's a couple of texts. When my belly recedes and I can see my toes again, then I'll start getting my feet pedicured, says Chris in Shrewsbury.
Chris, you have it backwards.
and-
If you get your toes done,
The
your belly will
disappear.
recede.
And listen to this one. I'm self-conscious about my feet and only show them at home. My toes are so long and so lanky that I literally once smoked a cigarette with my feet on a dare.
yeah. That is
Picture
very
that.
that's classy, much like this conversation. Like this is we're going to up it tomorrow on the next show, but we're going to go out on toes and feet. We had someone on the line. They left us.
I'll give you the number again. 877-301-8970. Here's Casey in Andover who says, I have beautiful feet. Strangers have stopped me on the street to compliment my
that
high
can't
archers.
be true. Really?
Yes.
People are that into feet that they stop
They
you on the
stop her on the
street?
street. My husband, however, has ugly feet with a long second toe, a.k.a. Greek toe. I thought that was Morton's toe. Isn't Morton's toe a long second toe? Anyway,
The Greeks name everything Greek.
She says she's very sad because her boys have inherited their husband's horrible feet. It's a tragedy. And the Statue of Liberty has a Greek toe.
I wouldn't have married him. I mean, if you knew that this People, I thought no one was going to call in. This is our most popular segment by the call-in. But if people have strong feelings about feet and bare feet and toes in public, and I do have to say, unless you're in a pool or on a beach or in a pedicure seat.
In a pedicure seat.
You should have something. You should have things on your feet. It's not nice to other people to take off shoes in public, to take off shoes on airplanes. It's rude.
You don't. You don't want to do that.
It's like coughing on someone.
All right, Natalie is calling in from Hudson. How do you feel about your feet, your husband's feet, your partner's feet? Are your toes up to snuff, Natalie?
My name's Natalie Julian, and my family owns Julian's Farm in Hudson, and we have a 2-acre flower cutting garden on a hillside. And this morning I looked out, and it was pouring rain, and there was a woman in an umbrella, and I was going up the hill to get something. I looked out, and she had flip-flops on out in the field. And so I thought to myself, oh my gosh, I love my Birkenstock sandals. I wear them daily, but I just wish people knew the context for when to wear sneakers, hiking boots.
Wait, so what do you wear? What do you wear when it's raining and gardening? Do you have those cute, little rain boots?
Bogs. You need bogs. Everybody needs a pair of bogs.
Bogs are
big rubber boots?
Oh God,
I don't know. Is that what they are?
And to go up right below your knee, or you can get the ankle height ones, but those are an amazing boot.
I have those for dog walking. That's right. I forgot. I have those for rainy dog walking. Okay, I didn't realize they had a name. I'm ready to garden in the fields.
Yeah.
What was the name of your farm?
Julian's Farm in Hudson. We're getting ready for peaches and corn to come in next week.
Oh, nice.
Fantastic.
Oh,
okay,
nice.
good.
There's nothing like fresh corn or peaches from the farm. Now that you're right, you don't want to wear thongs or flip-flops out in the middle. Apparently they have these sandals that are called thong sandals. They're like really thin little dividers between your toes. Now we're getting a lot of text messages, which I am not going to read. We have to draw the line somewhere about toe fungus.
No.
I'm sorry.
I'm putting a little class into this segment, which was handed to me. Which was handed to me.
The TV show
on the breakdown. I feel like
in
Jim
trouble.
would Jim have refused the segment?
No, he loves to talk about toe cleavage. It's one of his favorite subjects. Yeah.
That's true. But that's true.
It's not a TV show in trouble when they start running the toe fungus ads. That's when you know things are in big trouble.
Oh, is that right?
I think so.
That's right. Once again.
And so we
normalize
Roger
male
and
pedicures.
Quincy
This is
wants
what
to
we're
know
about.
when toenail fungus will get its place in the sun. Never, Roger. Never. Okay, let's go to Kevin in Rhode Island. What's your feet deal, Kevin?
Hi. First of all, let me preface what I'm going to say with we should all be born wearing socks.
Well, that was a great story about the guy in New York.
I mean, toes are ugly, and I will not wear flip flops unless I've had a pedicure.
You do pedicures?
To even the grocery store.
Yeah.
I will wear sneakers or an espadrille or something that covers my feet. No, unless you're a hobbit, guys, get your feet done.
Oh,
no one wants to see your dirty feet.
No, Kevin, I appreciate you. I think there's like this weird thing where we somehow pedicures are a thing that women do, or mostly women do, and it's never hit like, oh, this is something that human beings do. Everyone gets their hair cut. Why wouldn't they get their nails anyway? I appreciate you being part of the small minority of men.
You do see men in the nail salon,
like
more
1
often.
out of 10. 1 out of 10.
And there's a lot of women in there. A lot of the Vietnamese women that are new to the country, and they do beautiful jobs of people's nails and fingers. The only thing is that when they're speaking Vietnamese, which I don't understand, I think they're making fun of my feet.
Oh, that is so. I'm sure they are.
They're talking about
that. Would be
saying,
a good.
Come
TV.
over here. Come over here and look at this woman's feet.
An excellent TV
Have you ever seen
show.
feet like this?
Where I think that would be an excellent TV show where basically they're talking about our feet all the time.
Yeah. Do you think they're talking about your bunions when you go get your feet done?
Absolutely. Yeah. I feel that. I feel like when I exit.
I know. I feel that too. That people are making fun of my feet.
I know.
Okay,
guys. We know. Some of you have no interest in this, but lots of you have lots of interest in this, and because it's summer fun, and this is a big deal in Massachusetts because. We are required to have many kinds of shoes.
Okay, according to this story in The Guardian, that the most sexy kind of shoe is the slingback with the open toes. So you have the open toes in the front. That's supposed to symbolize that's with the toe cleavage, and then the back of the foot is supposed to be the rear end. So you got the toe cleavage in the front, the rear end in the back, with the slingback, which means you're at the back of the shoe.
There's a whole Guardian story about this.
It's in The Guardian, yes.
And a New York Times story about this.
I tell you,
I don't know. It's like I think there's not enough news.
Renaissance, foot-assance.
Right.
That
was a joke.
Of the foot-assance.
Yes,
that's what they're calling it. Toes are the new legs.
I'm against it. I'm against this whole conversation, glorifying feet. I am against it. Just go get your pedicure, be respectful, and that's all I have to say about it. But like the glorification, this is like, and get nice shoes.
Did you see what David said in the car?
David said, "What am I listening to?" David, I'm wondering that too. But you know what? We got to end on something about nothing.
Okay.
Given the times,
we do. We need a little lightening
levity.
Up. Yeah.
I'm not budging though. I hate this conversation.
Okay. The left second toe is about communication with self and spirit.
Wait, now our toes have.
Apparently they do. The right second toe is about communication with others. So I guess if you contemplate your left toe on your second toe on your left foot, it's doing a meditation.
Okay, now
I guess
we've
a little
jumped.
Zen.
The show has jumped the shark. I'm telling you, we are now getting people telling us that each toe.
But you're from California. Isn't California the king and queen of flip flops?
That's why I think we should normalize pedicures for men.
Yeah,
because I may be scarred from the experience of living in California when men really did not get pedicures. I think, but
they don't get taken.
But feet are just like I just don't get it. I don't get the whole feet. Toe fetish, sexy, anything.
Well, apparently,
sorry, but I mean, I was like
a lot of this
I have
started.
Nothing to contribute because my feet are ugly.
Remember Sex and the City, the TV show?
Yes.
Carrie Bradshaw ran around New York in open-toe Manolo Blahniks on Sex and the City. Those are very expensive shoes. Also a favorite of the editor of the Vogue, Anna Wintour. She loved the Manolo Blahniks as well.
So Richard, join us.
Hi, Richard.
Hi.
So what do you think about this topic?
I love this topic. My wife and I get pedicures every year around December because who's going to see my feet anyway?
Oh, except for her. Except for her. It's a gift to her.
Exactly.
It's what we call a boomerang gift. Yeah.
We got we got baby blue on my toes because my boy was born in December.
Oh, congratulations. Lovely. Yeah, so I mean, this is like, I feel like we've opened up an opportunity for men to call in and admit that they get pedicures. Do your friends know that you got a pedicure?
Oh, yeah, and they make fun of me all the time.
See, that's like, to me, that is crazy. That is crazy.
You know Jay Carney, big famous defense attorney around here in Boston? Yeah. He's defended a lot of famous people. He gets pedicures all the time. I think he had purple nail polish on his feet. Yeah. I think he may have showed Jim his feet because he may have a Morton toe as well.
No, we're going to turn this story into, like, I don't know, a New York Times story about toes into into well-beingness. And I'm glad. So you obviously enjoy it. Is he still on?
I think we lost him. I think we lost him. Let's go to Al on the road. What do you think, Al?
Oh, Al is gonna,
Hey guys, you gotta take the shoes off and free the toes.
Free the toes. That's right.
Free the toes.
Free the toes. I think that's a slogan that we can all get behind. Now, Al, have you freed your toes?
I have.
Yeah?
So I work in construction, so I wear boots for 40 hours a week.
Oh, very
I also
sexy.
do some long distance running.
Oh.
And so I got some sneakers. But the second it gets over 50 degrees, I'm in flip-flops whenever I can. You got to free the toes.
Yeah, and how do your toes look, Al?
Not bad.
Not bad?
Not bad.
How's your toenails?
I go to the beach.
Yeah?
I keep them, I'm aware of them, and I don't want to gross anybody out, so I try to keep them nice and neat.
Very nice.
Very good.
We are appreciative.
I have gotten a pedicure. But, yeah, you got to free the toes. Your toes got to breathe.
I think that's a great thing to think about, contemplate. Al, thank you for the call.
I think I've spoken more about
and the toes.
No, so look, everyone.
Toes.
I mean, most
flip-flops, tool belt.
You know, I
think?
love a beach. You know, I love surfing. I'm an exerciser. Like I got lots of shoe wear. I got no shoe wear. Whatever. I have no interest in thinking about feet and toes, except for my new crusade to have more men get pedicures.
Okay, we have a man in the studio right now.
Yes, what do you think?
Edgar B.
Join my crusade.
And I see you. I see you.
I see you,
as a
Margery.
toe man. Maybe you should take off your shoes and show us your feet.
Well, no, I mean, to be honest, Margery, I feel like my feet in general are pretty mashed up because I do a fair amount of dancing, and that can be quite hard on
You're
your
a
feet.
dancer.
You know, so
you do
what kind of dancing?
Lindy Hop swing dancing.
Oh, fantastic! I just started like line dancing.
How's that going?
It's
for
such
you?
a cliche. I know.
No, it's great.
I know, but it's such a cliche.
Don't be embarrassed. Embrace it. It's great.
I know. So back to feet and line dancing. I need to get cowboy boots.
Yes. Cowboy boots, you got to break them in, get them broken in, get them broken in.
What does all that dancing do to your feet?
Well, I mean, I think it you know, if on the one hand, it strengthens them in a certain way, but it can be hard on them. It can kind of destroy them. It'll get you. I'm much more like I think a lot about the shoes that I buy because you want to have comfortable, safe shoes on when you're dancing. But I don't do the I can't keep sandals on my feet.
Well, I don't know.
I have a hard time keeping flip flops or sandals even on.
I think you're being very modest. I have it from a good source that your feet are the legendary feet of the newsroom here at GBH. That's my understanding.
Well,
now what's on that show of yours at 2:00?
Well, hey, have you ever heard of the U.S. Sound Registry? Do you know what this is? So the Library of Congress, among the things that they do, they have a list of some 650 odd recordings that every year they add to this list that they have deemed like basically culturally significant for some reason. And it's everything from, seminal albums to kind of experimental sound recordings, etc.
Neat.
So we've got this little series that we're going to start rolling out today where we find an area musician or music lover or writer, and they pick one entry from that list and say, here's why I think it's important that this is on that list. So today we talk with Dart Adams about the De La Soul album from 1989, 3 Feet High and Rising. So it should be fun.
Edgar, I'm so glad you came, as I said, because
I'm
your
so
feet
glad
are
I did
legendary
too.
here, and he's the perfect man to end the show with.
I thought they were
Thank
going to
you,
play
Edgar.
De La Soul, so I started grooving, but it's just your background music.
We've all got to go get pedicures, so we got to get out of here. Let's go.
Normalize male
ladies.
pedicures.
Thanks, Edgar.
Thanks, great to see you.
Edgar is on the Culture Show at 2 o'clock. It starts right after us, and thank you for listening to another edition of Boston Public Radio. Keep up with us 24/7 way of our podcast. Jim and I are on the Toddcast by Chuck Todd, if you want to listen to that, too. We're going to be at the Boston Public Library tomorrow. Actually, it's going to be Juliette again. I had the day off. She's going to be with Jim, with Press Play and the Wall Street Journal's Colin Borges and GBH's Adam Riley for our segment Press Play, plus Live Music Friday with the singer-songwriter Debo Ray and her songwriting partner, plus PBS European travel guru Rick Steves and NBC 10's Sue O'Connell, our favorite media maven. We want to thank our crew, Zoe Matthews, Aidan Conley, Cole Garcia, Hannah Loss, our engineer John the Claw Parker, Patrick Lally, and Maddie Geyer ran our live stream today. Our executive producer is Jamie Bologna. As I said, the Culture Show is on right after us. Juliette, thank you so much for coming in
I had
today.
so much fun.
This was really fun.
I'm going to be back tomorrow live at Boston Public Library as guest co-host with
Yes, you
Jim
are.
Browdy. I'm really excited. The summer filler co-host role.
And I think we covered the big issues. Where else would you hear toe talk than right here on Boston Public
It's
Radio?
basically, I'm now done for my lifetime. We're down. No, we're not, as you know, that was enough toe talk.
Okay, I'm Margery Egan.
And I'm Juliette Kayyem. See you tomorrow.
Thanks again, Juliette. I hope you guys have a great afternoon.
Thanks.
What's trending? What's interesting? What's going on around town? We're talking all things arts and culture on The Culture Show, next on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you and the Museum of Printing in Haverhill, preserving the history of graphic communication from typewriters and presses to computers and copiers. Their expanded exhibit of rare and historic Bibles is now on view. More at museumofprinting.org. It's America's semi-quincentennial. Try saying that 3 times fast. GBH is celebrating 250 years of America and the birthplace of the American Revolution. Learn more at gbh.org/America250.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org.